The first rider reached the village before sunrise. His white cloak bore the silver sunburst of the church. By noon, there were 20. By evening, more than 100 horses stood silently beneath the towering pines surrounding the mountain settlement. No banners flew. No war horns sounded. The silence frightened the villagers far more. Children stopped playing. Doors remained shut. Even the dogs refused to bark. At the center of the village square, an elderly man slowly lowered the axe he had been using to split firewood. Village Chief Oren looked at the armored strangers approaching through the mist. Their leader dismounted first. His silver armor gleamed despite the cloudy sky, polished so perfectly that not a speck of mud clung to it after climbing the mountain roads. A long white cape rested behind broad shoulders. His face was calm. Too calm. He wasn't here to negotiate. "We seek a child," he said. His voice carried across the square without effort. A boy nearing 18. No family name. Black hair, unknown parents. The villagers exchanged confused looks. The chief frowned. "We have many boys." The knight's pale blue eyes swept across every face, but only one was found beside the Black River 18 years ago. Several villagers stiffened. "We've protected that secret for almost 2 decades. They—" Chief thought. How could they know? The knight stepped forward. "I am High Inquisitor Lucien. I will ask only once. Where is the child?" No one answered. Lucien nodded once. The soldiers behind him quietly spread throughout the village. Not aggressively, methodically. Every road, every bridge, every escape route. The village had already become a prison. Far above the square, completely unaware of what was unfolding below, Kale balanced effortlessly atop the branch of an ancient cedar. His axe flashed. Another thick branch crashed toward the ground. "That should be enough for old Mrs. Mira." He climbed down with practiced ease, landing lightly despite carrying a bundle of firewood nearly twice his size. At 18, Kale looked nothing like a legendary monster. He was lean rather than muscular, with black hair that shimmered silver whenever sunlight touched it. His crimson eyes often made newcomers uncomfortable, though the villagers had stopped noticing years ago. To them, he was simply Kale, the boy who repaired broken roofs, the boy who carried water for elderly neighbors, the boy who always smiled first. He tied the bundle together before hoisting it onto one shoulder. A bluebird landed nearby. Instead of flying away, it chirped happily. Another joined it. Then another. Kale laughed. "You 3 again?" One bird hopped onto the firewood. Another perched on his shoulder. The third landed directly on his head. If Rowan sees this, he'll say I'm secretly a tree. The birds chirped louder. He reached the edge of the forest overlooking the village. Something felt wrong. Smoke from evening kitchens should already be rising. Instead, nothing. Even the wind seemed quieter. The birds suddenly took flight. All 3 disappeared into the trees. Kale watched them go. They've never done that before. His hand rested against a nearby trunk. Warm golden light spread through the bark. Tiny white flowers bloomed instantly around his fingertips. He blinked. Again? The flowers had appeared more frequently over the past month. Whenever he healed injured animals. Whenever he prayed beside old graves. Whenever he touched dying trees. Rowan always brushed it aside. "Nature likes you." That was his answer. Nothing more. Kale smiled despite himself. Nature's becoming overly affectionate. As he pulled his hand away, the flowers continued blooming. At the same time, his shadow twisted unnaturally. It stretched several feet farther than it should despite the fading sunlight. Dark mist curled along the ground before fading as quickly as it appeared. Kale never noticed. He had already started walking home. Hell. Rowan's cottage stood at the very edge of the village. Simple, old, covered in climbing ivy. The elderly man sat outside sharpening a hunting knife when Kale arrived. "You took longer than expected. Mrs. Mira needed more wood." Of course she did. Kale placed the bundle beside the fence. "Did something happen?" Rowan didn't answer immediately. His weathered eyes drifted toward the village square. "I had visitors. Travelers. Worse." Kale raised an eyebrow. "Tax collectors. For the first time that day." Rowan laughed. "No. The church." The smile vanished from Kale's face. "They've never come here before." "I know." Rowan looked older than usual. His gray beard trembled slightly as he returned the knife to its sheath. They were asking questions. What kind? About a child. Silence settled between them. Kale forced a grin. Poor kid. Rowan looked directly into his eyes. "They were asking about you." The words struck harder than any blow. "Meh? I've never even left the mountain." "I know." "Then why would the church? They know who you are." Kale laughed nervously. "But I don't. Rowan stood slowly. For 18 years he had rehearsed this conversation. Now that the moment had arrived, every prepared word disappeared. I wanted to wait until tomorrow. My birthday? Yes. What changes tomorrow? Everything. Rowan walked inside the cottage. When he returned, an old wooden box rested in his hands. Its surface was covered with faded silver runes. He placed it carefully on the table. I promised them I wouldn't tell you until your 18th birthday. The promise has lasted 18 years. But they're here. I've run out of time. Kale stared at the box. Who are they? Instead of Instead of answering, Rowan opened it. Inside lay a silver pendant shaped like two wings embracing a black gemstone. The metal looked untouched by time. The gemstone seemed almost alive. The moment Kale reached toward it, the pendant exploded with light. Golden radiance flooded the room. Black mist erupted alongside it. The two energies spiraled around each other instead of colliding. Rowan's face turned pale. No, it shouldn't awaken until sunrise. The pendant floated into the air. Kale's heartbeat thundered. Something inside his chest answered. A pulse. Then another. Pain tore through every vein in his body. He collapsed onto one knee. Golden light burst from his left hand. Black flames ignited around his right. Neither burned the cottage, neither touched Rowan, yet both threatened to tear Kale apart from within. Outside, every horse surrounding the village suddenly reared. High Inquisitor Lucien slowly lifted his head. His expression remained calm. Only his eyes sharpened. So, the prophecy has awakened. He drew his sword. Surround the cottage. No one leaves alive. Rowan seized Kale by the shoulders before the two powers could throw him backward. Listen to me. Kale barely heard him. Golden light pulsed through the left side of his body, hot and sharp, while black fire surged through the right, cold enough to numb his bones. Each force seemed aware of the other. They pressed toward the center of his chest, not to combine, but to destroy whatever stood between them. The pendant hung above him, trembling. Kale, Rowan struck him across the face. The shock broke through the pain for half a breath. Look at me. Kale forced his eyes open. Rowan was afraid. Kale had seen the old man face wolves, winter storms, and armed bandits without hesitation. He had never seen fear in him before. What is happening to me? Your blood is waking? The black gemstone inside the pendant cracked with a thin line of silver light. Boots thundered beyond the cottage. Rowan glanced toward the door. We have less time than I thought. He pressed one hand against Kale's chest. A dull red glow spread beneath his palm, forming a circle of symbols that Kale had never seen. The pressure inside Kale eased slightly. You know magic. I know enough to delay this. A wave of red force burst from his hand and caught the flying glass before it could strike Kale. The shards stopped in the air, reversed and shot back through the windows. Men shouted outside. Rowan dragged Kale toward the rear wall. Can you walk? Kale tried to stand. His left leg obeyed. His right collapsed beneath him. No. Then learn quickly. The front door exploded. 3 armored inquisitors entered behind shields engraved with the silver sunburst. White light burned along the edges of their swords. Rowan drew the hunting knife from his belt. Kale stared at it. The blade was short, chipped, and meant for skinning deer. The first inquisitor raised his sword. Stand aside, old man. Rowan smiled without warmth. I've been waiting 18 years to hear someone say that. The inquisitor charged. Rowan moved once. The hunting knife slipped beneath the man's raised arm and struck the gap in his armor. Rowan twisted, took the man's balance and threw him into the second soldier. The third released a blade of white light. Rowan lifted his free hand. A red barrier formed before him. The holy blade shattered against it. Kale stared. Rowan had always complained about his knees when asked to climb onto the roof. Now he crossed the room faster than Kale could follow. The old man drove his shoulder into the third inquisitor, seized his sword arm, and slammed him into the table. The silver pendant spun above the overturned box as furniture broke around it. More soldiers crowded the doorway. Rowan retreated to Kale's side. That bought us 10 seconds. You lied to me. Yes, about what? Almost everything. Another holy blade struck the barrier. Cracks spread through the red light. Rowan touched the rear wall. The wooden planks folded apart, revealing a narrow stone passage hidden behind the cottage. Kale stared into the darkness. How long has that been there? Since before you learned to walk. And you never thought to mention it. You were a curious child. The barrier broke. Rowan shoved Kale into the passage. He followed and struck the wall with his palm. The planks slammed together behind them just as the soldiers entered. The tunnel sloped downward beneath the cottage. Symbols ignited along the stone as Rowan passed, casting dim red light over shelves of dried food, weapons, and water skins. This was not an escape passage someone had carved in desperation. It had been prepared, maintained, waiting. Rowan pulled a dark cloak from a hook and threw it around Cale's shoulders. "Cover your hands." The golden light and black fire had faded from sight, but both continued burning beneath Cale's skin. "Who are you?" "Your guardian." "That doesn't explain any of this." "It explains all of it." Rowan tied a sword belt around his waist. Cale had never seen the weapon before. Its plain black scabbard held no decoration. But the moment Rowan touched it, the air changed. The old man straightened. For an instant, his age seemed to fall away. "Move." The tunnel shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. "The church is breaking through." Cale followed because there was nothing else he could do. Each step drove the two powers deeper into his body. His heartbeat had become uneven. One beat radiated warmth. The next carried a terrible cold. The passage ended at an iron door beneath the hillside. Rowan listened before opening it. Forest mist rolled beyond the threshold. They emerged among ancient roots several hundred paces behind the cottage. The village lay below them. White armored soldiers moved between the homes. Villagers had been gathered in the square under guard. Cale stopped. "We can't leave them. We can't save them by staying. They're here because of me. They're alive because Lucien still needs answers." A scream rose from the village. Cale turned toward it. Rowan caught his arm. "Cale, they protected me, and they knew the risk." "I didn't. That was my choice." Cale pulled free. "So I'm supposed to run while they pay for it. You are supposed to survive long enough for their choice to mean something." The words struck harder than the slap had. Below, High Inquisitor Lucien stepped into the center of the square. His voice carried through the village. "The fugitive has awakened forbidden power." Several villagers crossed themselves. "He is not human. He is the continuation of the calamity that nearly destroyed this world 18 years ago." Cale looked at Rowan. "What calamity?" Rowan's jaw tightened. Lucien continued. "Anyone who assists him will be judged as an enemy of the Holy Dominion." The village chief stood before him. "He grew up here." Lucien regarded him without emotion. "That does not make him innocent. It makes him ours." A murmur of agreement moved through the villagers. Cale's throat tightened. Lucien raised one hand. A soldier forced the chief to his knees. "Where is he?" The chief looked toward the surrounding mountains. "He left yesterday." Lucien drew his sword. Cale took one step downhill. Rowan blocked him. "Move." "No." "Hell, kill him." "Yes." The answer froze Cale in place. Rowan's face held no cruelty. Only grief sharpened into discipline. "If you reveal yourself, Lucien will kill the chief and take you. Then everyone dies for nothing. You expect me to watch? I expect you to understand what survival costs." Lucien rested the sword against the chief's neck. "Last chance." The chief laughed. It was a small, tired sound. "You climbed all this way for one village boy." His gaze moved across the soldiers. "You must be terrified of him." Lucien's expression did not change. He lifted the blade. The village bell rang. Once, the sound rolled across the mountains. Every soldier looked toward the tower. Mrs. Mira stood beside the bell rope. The elderly woman who had asked Cale for firewood that morning gripped it with both hands. She rang the bell again. Then another villager stepped forward. Then another. Doors opened. Men and women emerged carrying axes, farming tools, hunting bows, and kitchen knives. They could not defeat the church. They knew it. Still, they formed a line between the soldiers and the mountain path. Lucien looked upon them as if examining an unexpected stain. "You would rebel for him?" Chief Oren rose slowly despite the sword at his neck. "No." He looked toward the forest. "We would protect our son." Cale's control broke. Golden light flared beneath his cloak. Black mist poured from his shadow. The earth around his boots cracked. Rowan turned and gripped both sides of Cale's face. "Look at me. They're going to die. They will die faster if you lose control. Then teach me. There is no time. Make time." The pressure inside Cale surged again. The forest leaned away from him. Leaves withered on one side of the path while fresh blossoms erupted on the other. Rowan stared the divided ground. Something changed in his expression. Not hope. Recognition. "The two powers are trying to establish dominance," he said. "Your holy blood sees the demonic half as corruption. Your demonic blood sees the holy half as a chain. How do I stop them?" "You don't." Cale's breathing faltered. "You give each one the same place." Another scream came from below. Rowan pressed two fingers against the center of Cale's chest. Do not force them together. Do not choose one over the other. Hold them apart without rejecting either. That makes no sense. Most important truths don't until you survive them. The golden light climbed Cale's left arm. Black flame wrapped around his right. Close your eyes. Cale obeyed. The world disappeared. Pain remained. Rowan's voice cut through it. Find the light. Cale felt it immediately. It was immense. Warm. Merciless. It carried the instinct to heal, protect, purify, and judge. It recognized suffering and wanted to erase it. It also recognized everything unlike itself as a threat. Do not follow it, Rowan said. Cale held his ground. Find the darkness. Cold spread through him. The demonic force was hunger, freedom, instinct, destruction, and the refusal to bow. It wanted to break every limit placed upon him. It also wanted to consume anything that stood in its path. Do not fear it. Cale's body trembled between them. The two forces rushed toward the center of his chest. His instinct was to resist. Instead, he gave them equal space. The collision stopped. Not completely. Not peacefully. For one impossible moment, the light and darkness revolved around a silent point between them. The pendant dropped into Cale's open hand. A silver line formed around the black gemstone. His heartbeat steadied. One warm beat, one cold beat. Then, both at once, Cale opened his eyes. The light around his left hand had softened. The black fire around his right no longer spread. Rowan released a slow breath. Eternal balance. Cale looked at him. What? That is what your mother called it. The bell rang again. Lucien's voice rose from the village. Burn the first house. Flames erupted near the square. Cale turned. This time, Rowan did not stop him. You cannot defeat Lucien. I don't need to. You can barely stand. I can stand long enough. Rowan studied him for one heartbeat. Then he drew the sword from his black scabbard. The blade was dark red, almost brown with age. Faint symbols glowed along its length. You will follow my instructions exactly, Cale nodded. We go down through the eastern ridge. You free the villagers. I hold the inquisitors. I'm not leaving you. You are. No? Rowan's gaze hardened. This is not the time to become stubborn. You raised me. Yes, then you know it's already too late. Despite everything. The corner of Rowan's mouth lifted. Your mother said the same thing once. Cale stepped closer. You knew her. I knew them both. Then tell me the truth. If we survive. And if we don't? Rowan looked toward the burning village. Then you don't. Rowan looked toward the burning village. Already know the most important part. He placed his hand on Cale's shoulder. They loved you enough to betray the world. The old man started downhill. Cale followed. They moved through the forest until the eastern ridge brought them behind the village shrine. Soldiers had left only 2 guards near the path, assuming no one could escape the cordon. Rowan struck the first from behind with a flat of his blade. Cale reached for the second. The soldier turned and drove a spear toward his chest. Cale raised his left hand instinctively. Golden light formed a thin shield. The spearhead struck it and stopped. The impact traveled through Cale's arm, but the barrier held. The soldiers stared. Cale did too. Black fire stirred in his right hand. He could have released it. Instead, he stepped forward, caught the spear shaft, and drove his shoulder into the soldier's armor. The man fell. Rowan struck him unconscious. Good. I almost burned him, but you didn't. They entered the rear of the village. Smoke rolled between the cottages. The fire had been set deliberately, but had not yet spread far. Lucien wanted fear, not destruction. At the square, soldiers held the villagers in a wide circle. Chief Oren remained on his knees. Lucien turned as Rowan and Cale stepped through the smoke. The village fell silent. Cale pushed back his hood. Several villagers gasped at the faint gold and black light moving beneath his skin. Mrs. Mira tightened her grip on the bell rope. Lucien's pale eyes settled on him. Cale, you know my name. I know the name your mother gave you. Cale felt Rowan tense beside him. Then you know she wasn't killed by the Demon King. A murmur spread through the villagers. Lucien's gaze shifted to Rowan. You told him. Not enough. You were ordered to destroy the child. I was ordered by men who feared an infant. You were ordered by the church. Rowan raised his sword. Those stopped meaning the same thing. Long raised his sword. A go. Recognition moved through the older inquisitors. One whispered, the Crimson Warden. Cale glanced at Rowan. The old man seemed to regret being recognized more than he feared the soldiers. Lucien stepped away from the chief. You abandoned your vows. I kept the only one that mattered. You protected the offspring of a saint and a demon. I protected a child. Lucien's sword ignited with white fire. There is no difference. He pointed the blade at Cale. Kneel. Cale remained standing. Lucien's voice carried the weight of command. Holy pressure descended across the square. Villagers collapsed. Wooden walls creaked. Cale's knees bent. The light inside him responded first, recognizing the authority woven into Lucien's power. It wanted to obey. The darkness answered with violent rejection. It wanted to tear the pressure apart. Cale held both. Neither obedience nor rage. He straightened. Lucien's eyes narrowed. Cale took another step forward. You came here believing I was a monster. You surrounded farmers. You corrupted them. You threatened children. To prevent another war. Cale looked around the square. At the villagers who had hidden him. At the burning home near the well. At Rowan standing between him and an army. If this is what holiness looks like, then I understand why half of me rejects it. Darkness surged. The soldiers raised their weapons. Cale lifted his left hand. And if hatred is all darkness offers, I reject that too. Golden light spread over the ground. The two powers met around his feet. For a moment, the square was divided into light and shadow. Then both curved into a single rotating ring. Lucien's expression changed for the first time. Impossible. Rowan moved. His red blade struck the nearest soldier's sword and shattered the holy enchantment around it. Now. Cale thrust both hands outward. He did not understand what he was doing. He only knew what he wanted. Not death, not victory. Space. The golden force expanded first, forming a protective wave around the villagers. The black power followed along its edge, breaking the chains and weapons that touched the barrier. Metal snapped. Holy bindings dissolved. The villagers were thrown backward but remained unharmed. The soldiers took the full force. They crashed into walls, carts, and the muddy road. Cale's vision blurred. The balance inside him tilted. Too much darkness rushed toward his right arm. Black veins spread beneath his skin. Release it into the ground, Rowan shouted. Cale dropped to one knee and struck the earth. Dark energy tore through the square. A jagged trench split the road without reaching the villagers. The pressure eased. Lucien crossed the distance between them in an instant. His sword descended toward Cale's neck. Rowan intercepted it. White fire and red light exploded between the blades. The force shattered every remaining window around the square. Take them to the eastern path, Rowan shouted. Cale rose unsteadily. The villagers had already begun moving. Chief Oren seized a fallen shield and covered Mrs. Mira as they retreated between the cottages. Several younger villagers helped the injured. No one ran ahead alone. They moved as one community. Lucien forced Rowan backward. You cannot protect him forever. I only need to protect him today. Lucien's sword became a column of light. Rowan's red barrier fractured under the next strike. Cale started toward them. Rowan shouted without looking back. Eastern path! Cale stopped! More inquisitors entered the square. He could stay and fight beside Rowan. He could also let the soldiers cut through the fleeing villagers. The choice tore at him. Rowan had known it would. Go! Cale turned and ran. He reached the eastern cottages as 3 soldiers moved to block the villagers. Cale summoned light into his left hand. The power gathered unevenly. He shaped it around the first villager's wooden shield, reinforcing the cracked boards with a golden layer. The soldiers struck. The shield held. Cale swept his right hand across the ground. Black mist wrapped around the soldiers' boots and pulled them off balance. The villagers rushed past without attacking the fallen men. Cale followed. The eastern path narrowed between 2 cliffs before descending into the forest. A white flare rose above the village. A church signal. Distant horns answered from the surrounding mountains. Reinforcements were moving to close the lower roads. Chief Oren looked at Cale. How many? Too many. Mrs.? Mira grabbed Cale's sleeve. Where is Rowan? Cale looked back. The village square flashed white and red behind the smoke. He is coming. The lie tasted bitter. Chief Oren understood. He placed one hand on Cale's shoulder. We know another way. The villagers led Cale away from the road toward an old shepherd trail hidden behind thorn bushes. The path crossed a narrow ledge above the river. Children were carried. The injured were supported between neighbors. No one complained. Cale remained at the rear, watching for soldiers. The pain inside his body grew with every step. The eternal balance was no longer stable. His use of power had shaken the 2 halves apart again. Golden light flickered in his vision. Black shadows crawled along the edges. He stumbled. Mrs. Mira caught his arm. You're supposed to be helping me, not the other way around. Cale forced himself upright. I'm fine. You've never lied well. A horn sounded behind them. Soldiers entered the shepherd trail. Cale turned. 6 inquisitors advanced across the ledge. There was no room for the villagers to pass them. No place to retreat. The river rushed far below. Cale raised both hands. His arms shook. He searched for the silent point Rowan had shown him. Light on the left, darkness on the right. Equal space. The power steadied. The first Inquisitor charged. Cale formed a golden barrier across the width of the trail. The soldier struck it. Cracks appeared instantly. A second attack landed. Then a third. The barrier would not hold. Black power surged through Cale's right hand. He sent it beneath the ledge. Stone cracked. The soldiers froze as the trail under their feet began to collapse. Cale saw their fear. He altered the flow at the last moment. Instead of dropping the ledge into the river, he broke only its outer edge. The soldiers fell toward the cliff, but golden threads shot from Cale's left hand and wrapped around their armor. He swung them into the rocky wall below the trail. They struck hard enough to lose consciousness, but remained hanging above the river. The villagers stared at him. Cale released the golden threads. The soldiers dropped onto a narrow shelf several feet below. Alive, Chief Oren gave a small nod. Cale looked away. I didn't save them for the church, I know. They continued along the trail. Behind them, the village bell rang once more, then stopped. Cale turned so quickly that pain tore across his chest. White light erupted above the rooftops. A red barrier rose to meet it. For one breath, the two powers formed a dome over the village. Then the white light pierced through. The red barrier shattered. The shockwave rolled across the mountain. Trees bent. Birds erupted from the forest. Cale stood motionless. No second red flare appeared. No, he left the trail. Chief Oren tried to catch him. Cale tore free and ran uphill. Branches struck his face. The two powers inside him surged with his panic. He reached the ridge above the village. Rowan stood alone in the square. His sword had broken near the hilt. Blood darkened his clothes. Bodies of unconscious Inquisitors lay around him, but Lucien remained standing. The High Inquisitor's silver armor had cracked across one shoulder. His white cloak burned at the edges. He held Rowan by the throat. Cale stepped forward. Rowan saw him. His face tightened with anger, then softened. Lucien followed his gaze. A thin smile touched his lips. I knew you would return. He threw Rowan onto the ground. Cale descended into the village. Every step became harder. The golden half of his power flooded with grief and demanded that he heal Rowan. The demonic half answered with fury and demanded Lucien's death. The balance collapsed between them. Cale, Rowan said. His voice was weak but clear. Don't. Lucien lifted his sword. Your guardian murdered 12 consecrated servants of the church. Cale looked at the bodies. Their chests still moved. They're alive. His intention is irrelevant. Lucien placed the point of his sword against Rowan's chest. Surrender, and I may allow the villagers to remain free. Cale knew it was a lie. Lucien knew he knew. It did not matter. The offer was not meant to convince him. It was meant to force him to choose. Cale walked into the square. The air around him divided. Golden light bloomed from one shoulder. Black fire climbed the other. Lucien watched with cold satisfaction. Yes, let hatred choose for you. Cale's hands clenched. The darkness answered. The ground beneath him blackened. Lucien drove the blade down. Rowan caught it between both hands. White fire burned into his palms. Cale stopped. Rowan looked directly at him. You are not what they call you. Blood ran down his wrists. You are not what either power wants you to become. Lucien pushed harder. The sword pierced Rowan's chest. Cale heard the sound leave the old man's lungs. Everything inside him went silent. Lucien withdrew the blade. Rowan collapsed. The darkness broke free. Black flames erupted across the square. Stone dissolved beneath Cale's feet. The remaining Inquisitors retreated. Lucien raised a shield of holy light. The black fire struck it and spread across the surface. Cale could feel the demonic power offering him everything. Strength. Speed. Enough force to tear through Lucien's defenses. Enough power to reduce the village and everyone inside it to ash. All he had to do was stop resisting. Golden light pulsed weakly beneath the darkness. It carried Rowan's voice. Hold them apart without rejecting either. Cale looked at Rowan. The old man lay in the mud, one hand resting against his wound. His eyes remained open, waiting. Cale drew the darkness back. It resisted. He did not reject it. He gave it a boundary. Then he reached for the light. It flooded toward his grief, offering healing that could not undo what had already happened. Cale gave it the same boundary. Between them, he found the silent point. The black flames contracted around his right arm. Golden light condensed around his left. Cale stepped forward. Lucien released a blade of holy power. Cale raised his left hand. The golden barrier caught it. Instead of shattering, the barrier turned, guiding the attack aside. The holy blade struck an empty house and split its roof. Cale crossed the remaining distance. Lucien swung his sword. Cale caught the blade between his palms. Golden light protected his left hand. Black power wrapped around his right. The opposing energies flowed into the sword from both sides. Cracks spread through the consecrated steel. Lucien's eyes widened. Cale broke the sword. The upper half spun away. Lucien struck Cale across the face with the broken hilt. Cale staggered. A white sigil formed beneath his feet. Chains of light erupted from the ground and wrapped around his arms, chest, and throat. The holy power recognized the golden half inside him and tried to command it. Kneel. The demonic power roared against the chains. Break. Cale chose neither. He allowed the light to pass through him without surrendering. He allowed the darkness to strengthen him without taking control. The chains turned gray, then cracked. Cale tore free. Lucien raised one hand. A spear of condensed light formed above his palm. Cale saw the attack. He also saw the soldiers behind Lucien, the burning homes, Rowan on the ground, the forest beyond the village. If he met the spear with raw force, the collision would destroy everything nearby. Cale lowered his hands. Lucien released the spear. At the last moment, Cale moved both powers toward the silent point. Not against each other. Around each other. The rotating ring formed before his chest. The spear entered it. Golden power accepted the holy energy. Black power stripped away its command. The spear broke into harmless fragments of light. Lucien stared. Cale thrust both palms forward. The ring expanded. The force struck Lucien without heat, blade, or flame. His armor folded inward. He flew across the square and crashed through the shrine doors. The remaining inquisitors raised their weapons. Cale turned toward them. The ring continued rotating behind him. Half gold, half black. None of the soldiers advanced. Cale returned to Rowan. The old man's breathing had become shallow. Golden light gathered in Cale's left hand. He pressed it over the wound. The light entered Rowan's body. For one hopeful moment, the bleeding slowed. Then the power recoiled. Something within the wound rejected it. Cale tried again. Black fire rose around his right hand, offering to burn away whatever blocked the healing. Rowan caught his wrist. No. I can fix this. You can't. I healed the shepherd's dog when it was dying. I am not a dog. Then stop talking and let me try. Rowan laughed, then coughed. Blood touched his lips. Cale pressed harder against the wound. Golden light spread across Rowan's chest, but the sword had carried more than physical damage. Holy symbols burned inside the wound, consuming every attempt to close it. Cale reached for more power. The balance tilted. Rowan tightened his grip. Do not destroy yourself for a dead man. You're not dead? Not yet. Not yet. Then help me. I already have. Cale's vision blurred. You promised to tell me everything. I promised if we survived. We can still survive. We can still survive. Rowan looked toward the forest where the villagers had escaped. You did. Footsteps sounded inside the shattered shrine. Lucien dragged himself from the wreckage. His armor was broken. Blood ran from his temple. The force of Cale's attack had injured him, but not ended the battle. Rowan heard him. His hand moved beneath his coat. He removed a second object from a hidden pocket. A small iron seal marked with the same red symbols that had appeared in the tunnel. He pressed it into Cale's hand beside the pendant. North of the Black River, Rowan whispered. Follow the Vale Road. What will I find? Where your mother began searching. Lucien approached. Darkness gathered around Cale's right arm. Rowan gripped it. No revenge. He killed you. And if you lose yourself killing him, then he kills both of us. Cale looked at Lucien. The High Inquisitor stopped several paces away. You cannot escape. Rowan smiled faintly. That is what they told his father. He struck the iron seal with 2 fingers. The symbols ignited. A red circle spread beneath Cale. Understanding arrived too late. No. Rowan shoved him backward. The circle became a wall of red light. Cale struck it. The barrier did not move. Rowan. The old man rose to one knee between Cale and Lucien. He no longer had a sword. Only the broken hilt remained. You said you'd come with me. I said many things. Don't do this. I was given one duty. Red light climbed Rowan's body. The symbols carved beneath the village roads awakened one after another. Cale saw them spreading between the houses. A formation. The entire village had been built around it. Rowan had not merely prepared the cottage. He had prepared the mountain. My duty was never to raise you, Rowan said. The red formation brightened. It was to give you the chance to choose who you would become. Lucian recognized the spell. He stepped back. "Stop him," the Inquisitors charged. Rowan drove the broken sword hilt into the ground. Red pillars erupted throughout the square. The soldiers were thrown aside. The barrier around Cale began pulling him toward the forest. Cale fought it. Golden light flared from his left hand. Black fire tore from his right. Neither could break Rowan's formation. "Please." Rowan looked at him one last time. For the first time since the attack began, there was no fear in his eyes. Only the same quiet patience Cale had known all his life. "Happy birthday, Cale." The red light collapsed inward. The world vanished. Cale struck the ground among the trees beyond the eastern ridge. The impact drove the air from his lungs. He rolled down the slope and crashed against a root. Behind him, the village disappeared inside a dome of red light. Lucian's white power erupted against it from within. The dome held for 1 second, then 2. Then it contracted. A deep sound rolled through the mountain. Not an explosion, a final breath. The red light folded into the village and vanished. The church soldiers surrounding the mountain were thrown from their horses. Trees bent away from the settlement. When the mist cleared, the village still stood. The fires had gone out. The villagers had escaped. But no red light remained in the square. Cale tried to rise. His arms failed. The pendant lay beneath one hand. The iron seal rested beneath the other. A figure appeared within the black gemstone. At first, Cale thought the impact had damaged his sight. Then a woman formed in the air before him. She wore white armor beneath a torn cloak. Long silver hair moved around her face despite the still air. Golden light shone softly behind her. But grief had carved exhaustion into her eyes. She held an infant against her chest. Cale stopped breathing. The woman looked down at the child. "If this memory has awakened, then we failed to return before your 18th year." Her voice trembled once, then steadied. "My name is Seraphina." Cale's fingers closed around the pendant. "I am your mother." The memory shifted. A tall man stood beside her, wrapped in black armor. Curved horns rose from dark hair, and crimson eyes watched the infant with a gentleness that contradicted every story Cale had ever heard about demons. The Demon King. His father. Seraphina continued. "The world will tell you that I was sent to kill him. That part is true." The man beside her looked towards something beyond the memory. "But the world will not tell you what we discovered." The image shook. Distant light flashed behind them. "We cannot leave the full truth where either the church or the demon clans may find it, so we divided it. Memory by memory. Path by path." The Demon King placed one armored hand over the child's blanket. His voice was low. "If you carry both our powers, they will fight inside you. Do not let either side define the other. Light without mercy becomes judgment. Darkness without restraint becomes hunger." Seraphina touched the infant's face. "Seek where light first embraced darkness. The old light first embraced darkness. Sanctuary beyond the veil frontier. Trust those who choose you after learning what you are, not those who claim you because of your blood." The memory began to fade. Seraphina leaned closer to the infant. Her expression softened. "We wanted you to grow up without inheriting our war. I am sorry that we could not give you that life. But whatever the world calls you, remember this: you were not born from corruption. You were born because two enemies chose to see each other clearly." The image dissolved. Cale remained beneath the trees, listening to the distant church horns. The pendant cooled in his hand. Below the ridge, villagers emerged cautiously from the hidden trail. Chief Oren saw him and began climbing. Cale pushed himself upright before anyone reached him. His body hurt. The two powers remained unstable. His home was gone. Rowan was gone. Yet the silent point still existed between light and darkness. Small. Fragile. His choice to maintain. Cale tied the pendant around his neck. He placed the iron seal inside his coat. Chief Oren reached him first. No one asked where Rowan was. The answer was written across every face. "Mrs. Mira stepped forward and pressed a wrapped loaf of bread into Cale's hands. "You'll need this." Cale looked toward the villagers. "You can't return. We know." Chief Oren said, "This happened because of me. It happened because Lucian chose to. Bring an army against a village. They'll keep hunting you. They were going to do that whether you apologized or not." Cale lowered his gaze. Chief Oren placed both hands on his shoulders. "Rowan spent 18 years preparing you to leave. Hey, spent just as long preparing us to survive when you did." Cale looked toward the eastern trail. The villagers had supplies packed inside hidden carts. Blankets, food, tools, documents. They had known. Perhaps not the full truth, but enough to understand that one day their peaceful life might end. Cale felt the weight of every sacrifice pressing against his chest. He could not repay them by staying. He could not repay Rowan by turning back. "Where will you go?" "South," Chief Oren said. "There are mining settlements beyond the church roads. We'll divide into smaller groups." Cale looked north, toward the Black River, toward the Vale frontier, toward the place his mother had named. "I have to find the sanctuary, Mrs. Mira adjusted the cloak around his shoulders as if he were still a child leaving home in winter. "Then find it." The village bell rang in the distance. Once, not from human hands. The wind moved through the damaged tower and pulled the rope against the bronze. Cale looked back for the last time. White riders were already regrouping along the lower roads. Lucian had survived. The church would spread its version of what had happened before sunrise. The Demon King's child had awakened. The Crimson Warden had betrayed the Holy Dominion. A mountain village had fallen to corruption. By tomorrow, Cale would become a monster in the minds of people who had never seen him. He turned north. The golden power within him warmed at the thought of protecting those still alive. The darkness sharpened at the memory of those taken from him. Cale gave both the same place. Then he stepped onto the road. Behind him, the villagers disappeared into the southern forest. Ahead, the mountains opened toward a world that had already decided what he was. Cale walked into it anyway. The road north disappeared beneath the first snow before Cale reached the Black River. For 3 days, he avoided villages, patrol routes, and every shrine marked with the silver sunburst. He slept beneath trees and drank from mountain streams, while the church bells carried his name farther than he could travel. At each roadside altar, new notices appeared. A black-haired youth. Crimson eyes, forbidden power. Do not approach. Report all sightings to the nearest inquisitorial command. The reward increased each day. By the time Cale saw the river, the church valued his capture more highly than the combined harvest of his entire village. He tore the latest notice from a tree and used it to start a fire. The paper burned quickly. The face drawn upon it remained visible until the flames reached the eyes. Cale sat against a fallen trunk, holding his hands above the warmth. A golden light moved beneath the skin of his left palm. Black veins flickered across his right before disappearing. Neither power had settled since leaving the mountain. Whenever he used the holy half to heal his blistered feet, the demonic half surged against the restraint. Whenever he called upon darkness to conceal himself from patrols, the light answered as if he had embraced corruption. Rowan had taught him how to find the silent point. He had not taught him how to keep it. Cale closed his eyes. Light on the left, darkness on the right. Equal space. The golden power gathered first. It spread through him with the memory of summer mornings, fresh bread, and Rowan pretending not to smile whenever Cale defeated him at stones. The darkness followed. It carried cold earth, sharpened instinct, and the memory of Lucian's sword entering Rowan's chest. Cale's control slipped. Black fire consumed the golden light. The campfire exploded. Cale threw himself aside as burning wood scattered across the snow. He extinguished the flames before they spread, then remained kneeling in the mud. "Oh, so much for equal space." Something moved beyond the trees? Cale reached for the pendant. No new memory appeared, but the black gemstone had grown warm. He covered it beneath his cloak and listened. Branches snapped. A creature emerged from the darkness. It resembled a wolf only in shape. Its body was too long, its forelegs too muscular, and black crystal grew through its hide like exposed bone. Pale mist leaked from its mouth with every breath. A second appeared behind it, then 4 more. Cale rose slowly. He had seen wolves throughout his childhood. These animals moved differently. Their eyes did not track him. They tracked the power inside him. The first beast lowered its head. The crystals along its back glowed. Cale formed a golden barrier a moment before it lunged. The creature struck hard enough to drive him backward through the snow. Claws scraped across the light. Cracks spread from the impact. The second beast attacked from his right. Cale released black fire. The flames struck its shoulder and threw it into a tree. Instead of burning, the crystals absorbed the darkness. They brightened. The beast rose stronger than before. Cale understood too late. The creatures did not merely sense his unstable power. They fed on it. The pack attacked together. Cale collapsed the golden barrier and rolled beneath the first set of claws. He drove his elbow into the beast's ribs, but the impact barely moved it. A jaw closed around his cloak. The fabric tore as he twisted away. Another creature struck his back. Cale hit the ground and tasted blood. The darkness surged immediately. It offered strength without hesitation. He allowed part of it through. Black flame wrapped around his right arm as he seized the nearest beast by the throat. The cold power spread into the crystals, but instead of releasing it, Kale pulled. The demonic energy inside the creature answered his own. The beast stiffened. Kale tore the corrupted power out. Black mist poured from its body and gathered around his hand. The crystals dimmed. The creature collapsed. The victory lasted one breath. The stolen energy rushed into Kale's veins. His right arm darkened to the shoulder. Hunger spread through him. More. The demonic power had discovered that it could consume what the creatures carried. The remaining beasts charged. Kale raised his left hand and forced golden light through the stolen darkness. Pain tore across his chest. The two powers collided. A gray pulse exploded from his body. Snow lifted in a widening ring. The beasts were thrown backward. Kale fell to one knee, struggling to breathe. The pack recovered first. The largest creature approached slowly. Its crystal-covered head lowered until pale eyes met Kale's. He reached for the silent point. The darkness resisted containment. The light recoiled from what he had absorbed. For the first time since leaving the village, he could not bring them level. The beast sprang. A silver spear struck it in midair. White light pierced its chest and pinned it to the ground. Kale turned. A young woman stood on the ridge above him. She wore a travel-stained white robe beneath light armor, with a silver sunburst fastened at her throat. Pale blonde hair had been tied behind her head, and both hands gripped the shaft of a second spear formed entirely from holy power. A priestess. She released the weapon. Kale rolled aside. The spear passed him and struck another beast. "You missed," he said. "I wasn't aiming at you." She jumped from the ridge. Golden symbols formed beneath her boots and slowed her fall. She landed beside Kale, drew a short metal staff from her belt, and expanded it into a spear with a single twist. The surviving beasts circled them. The priestess glanced at Kale's blackened arm. "You're corrupted." "I've had a difficult evening." That wasn't a question. The pack attacked. She stepped forward and swept her spear in a wide arc. A crescent of white light forced three creatures back. Kale raised a golden barrier behind her as another leaped from the trees. The beast struck the shield. The priestess turned, drove her spear through its crystal growth, and released a pulse of holy power. The corruption shattered from within. Kale stared. "You could have done that earlier. You were in the way." Two beasts rushed from opposite sides. Kale caught the first with black bindings around its legs. The priestess killed the second. The blackened veins climbed toward Kale's neck. He released the bindings before the demonic power could absorb more. The largest remaining creature howled. The crystals across the pack responded. Their bodies swelled as corrupted energy passed between them. The priestess planted her spear. A circular holy formation spread across the snow. Keep them inside the boundary. What happens inside it? They die. That sounds reassuring. Kale used golden barriers to redirect the first two beasts into the circle. The priestess began chanting. The remaining creatures recognized the danger and turned toward her. Kale intercepted them. He formed a wall of light. Claws broke through it. He reinforced the barrier with darkness along its outer edge. The two powers met. Instead of exploding, the golden wall became denser. Black lines spread across it like a frame supporting glass. The beasts struck. The hybrid barrier held. Kale felt both powers resist the formation, but neither could overpower the other while they shared the same purpose: protect. The realization steadied him. The priestess completed her prayer. White pillars rose from the circular formation. The corrupted beasts froze as holy light passed through them. Their crystals cracked. Black mist poured free and dissolved harmlessly in the air. The forest fell silent. Kale released the barrier. The structure collapsed into gold and black sparks. The priestess stared at the fading light. Kale stepped away before she could raise her spear. He did not get far. The stolen corruption surged through his arm again. His knees failed. The priestess caught him before he struck the ground. White light gathered around her hand. Kale zeitzed her wrist. "Don't. You're dying. Your power won't react well with mine. It's healing. So is half of mine." Her eyes narrowed. That sentence makes no sense. It's been a confusing week. The darkness reached his chest. Kale released her wrist and pressed his left hand over his right arm. Golden light flowed into the blackened veins. The powers collided beneath his skin. The priestess placed her hand over both of his. "Stop forcing them." Kale looked up. "You can see them? I can feel the holy power resisting you. It always does, because you treat it like a weapon you stole." She closed her eyes. Her light entered his left hand, not to heal him, but to guide the power already there. Holy energy responds to intention. As so does the other half. Then give them the same intention. Kale thought of the barrier. Protect. The golden energy stopped trying to purge the darkness. The demonic power stopped trying to consume the light. Both turned toward the corruption he had absorbed. Together they pushed it from his arm. Gray mist escaped through his fingertips and vanished. The black veins receded. Kale opened his eyes. The priestess immediately placed the tip of her spear against his throat. Now explain why the most wanted heretic in the Holy Dominion can use sacred light. Kale looked at the silver sunburst at her collar. You first? I asked the question. Knew how to help me balance two powers. I helped you direct your own healing. You didn't seem surprised by the darkness. I was surprised. You hide it well. So do you? Neither moved. The forest wind shifted around them. Kale could attack first. The darkness inside him approved of the idea. The light rejected killing someone who had just saved him. Both reactions were predictable. He listened to neither. You could have let the beasts kill me, he said. I considered it, but you didn't. I need answers. So do I. The spear remained at his throat. Kale slowly lifted both empty hands. My name is Kale. I know. Then we're making progress. Her expression did not soften. Elena, is that all? For now? She lowered the spear by an inch. A horn sounded far to the south. Church patrols. Elena turned toward it. A second horn answered from the river. Kale glanced at her. Friends of yours? They were. That answer changed the situation. Elena collapsed her spear back into a short staff. The corruption pack will have drawn every patrol nearby. We need to move. You're helping me escape the church? I'm avoiding them. That isn't the same thing. It is while we're traveling in the same direction. She started north without waiting. Kale followed. You don't know where I'm going. The Black River is north, you noticed. And beyond it lies the Vale frontier. Kale's hand moved toward the pendant. Elena saw it. You're seeking something there. So are you. She did not answer. They reached the river before dawn. The Black River was wider than Kale had imagined, cutting through the mountains like a wound. Dark water rushed between shelves of ice, too fast to freeze completely. The main bridge stood half a mile east. Church lanterns moved across it. Elena crouched behind a cluster of rocks. The patrol doubled. They're looking for me. They're looking for both of us. Kale glanced at her. What did you do? I asked a question. That must have been a dangerous question. It was directed at dangerous question. The wrong bishop. She removed a leather case from beneath her cloak. Inside rested several copied pages covered in old church script. Kale recognized one symbol immediately. A circle divided equally between gold and black. The same shape his power had formed in the village square. He reached toward the page. Elena closed the case. Answers first. Those pages mention the eternal balance. Her eyes sharpened. You know the name. My mother used it. Elena studied him for several seconds. The church records say your mother died 18 years ago. The church records say your mother died 18 years ago. Church records say she killed my father. She did. No. Kale removed the pendant. The black gemstone remained still. I saw a memory. They stood together. Elena looked at the pendant. Then away. Memories can be forged. Can church records? She did not answer. Kale nodded toward the case. You already know they can. Lantern light moved along the road behind. The patrol was approaching. Elena returned the case beneath her cloak. We crossed downstream. There's no bridge. There was. They followed the river west until the remains of an ancient stone crossing appeared beneath the water. Only a few pillars remained above the current. Elena stepped onto the first. Golden symbols formed beneath her feet. She jumped to the next pillar. Kale followed. The whetstone shifted beneath him. He used a burst of darkness to carry himself farther. The power responded too strongly. He overshot the pillar and struck its edge with both hands. Elena caught his wrist. The river pulled at his legs. Less power, she said. I noticed. He formed golden light around his fingers for grip. The holy energy slipped across the wet stone. Elena pulled him upward. A crossbow bolt struck the pillar beside her head. Soldiers appeared along the bank. There! One shouted. The heretic and the apostate. Kale climbed onto the pillar. Apostate? Elena jumped toward the next stone. Not now. Bolts followed them across the river. Kale raised a golden shield behind them. The first 3 bolts shattered against it. The fourth carried a consecrated tip. It pierced the barrier and struck his shoulder. Kale nearly fell. Elena turned back. Keep moving. I'm trying. The soldiers formed a firing line. White light gathered around their crossbows. Elena could reach the northern bank before the volley. Cale could not. She jumped back onto his pillar. What are you doing? Preventing you from dying before answering my questions. She planted her staff into a crack in the stone. Holy light expanded into a dome. The soldiers fired. Bolts struck from every angle. Cracks spread through the dome. Cale gripped the consecrated bolt in his shoulder. The holy power within it burned against his demonic blood. He broke the shaft but could not pull the tip free. The barrier began collapsing. Elena, I know. No. Drop it. We'll be torn apart. I can redirect the attack. You nearly fell into the river using one step of demonic power. That was movement. And this is different. I hope so. She looked at him as though deciding whether drowning would be preferable. Another volley struck. The barrier fractured. Elena released it. Cale raised both hands. Golden light formed a curved surface before them. Darkness gathered along its back. The consecrated bolts struck. The holy barrier accepted their energy. The dark layer denied their direction. Cale turned both hands. The barrier curved with the motion. Every bolt changed course. They shot upward in a spiral and vanished into the morning sky. The soldiers on the bank fell silent. Elena stared at the rotating shield. That was not a holy technique. It wasn't demonic either. The structure destabilized. Cale dismissed it before it exploded. Elena grabbed him and jumped. Golden symbols carried them from the pillar to the northern bank. They landed hard among frozen reeds. Cale pulled the bolt tip from his shoulder. Blood followed. Elena pressed a glowing hand over the wound. This time, Cale did not stop her. The injury closed slowly. Your hybrid technique, she said. Can you repeat it? Probably. The first barrier happened while monsters were trying to eat us. The second happened while soldiers were trying to shoot us. SO danger improves your concentration. It limits distractions. Church soldiers began crossing the old pillars. Elena pulled him upright. They entered the Vale frontier. The change was not marked by a wall or border stone. The forest simply became older. Pines gave way to pale trees with silver bark. Mist gathered between their trunks even after sunrise, and fragments of ruined roads appeared beneath moss and roots. No church bells reached this far. Cale had expected relief. Instead, the silence felt watched. Elena moved carefully. The frontier used to contain settlements. What happened to them? The official history says demons destroyed them during the last war. And the unofficial history? That is what I came to find. They walked until midday. Before discovering fresh blood on the snow. Not human. Dark red drops led toward a ruined watchtower. Elena raised her staff. Cale felt demonic power ahead, different from his own. Sharper, more settled. They approached the tower from opposite sides. A figure sat against the broken wall. He appeared close to Cale's age, with dark gray skin, short black horns, and silver hair matted with blood. Leather armor covered a lean frame, and a curved blade rested within reach of one hand. An arrow protruded from his side. The demon opened amber eyes. He saw Elena first. His hand closed around the blade. Then he saw Cale. Confusion replaced hostility. You smell wrong. Cale stopped. That's becoming a common opinion. Elena aimed her staff. The demon drew his sword despite the arrow in his body. Black energy gathered along its edge. You crossed the river to finish the work? Elena looked at the arrow. The shaft carried white feathers. A church weapon. I didn't shoot you. Humans always say that after missing. Cale stepped between them. Both weapons turned toward him. This is productive. Move, Elena said. The demon's eyes narrowed at Cale's hands. Holy light, black mist gathered around Cale's other arm. And that. The demon's sword lowered slightly. What are you? Cale looked from the priestess to the wounded scout. I'm beginning to hate that. Question. Movement sounded within the forest. Not church soldiers. Heavy footsteps. Armor scraping against bark. The demon's expression changed. They followed me. Who? Cale asked. My people. Elena glanced at the church arrow. Your people shot you with holy weapons? They use whatever kills. A horn echoed between the silver trees. Low, demonic. The wounded scout tried to stand and failed. Cale caught him before he fell. The demon pressed the blade against Cale's ribs. Let go. You can barely hold the sword. I can still put it through you. Then wait until after I move you somewhere less obvious. Elena, watch the trees. We don't have time to argue. Kale, say I have time to argue. Kale lifted the scout over one shoulder. The demon growled. Put me down. No, I have a name. That would have been useful earlier. Rook. Good. Save your strength, Rook. Alena led them behind the watchtower. A collapsed staircase descended beneath the ruins into an old storage chamber. They entered moments before armored figures emerged from the mist. Kale lowered Rook against the wall. Through cracks in the stone, they watched 6 demon warriors surround the tower. Unlike Rook, they wore heavy iron armor marked with red claw symbols. Their leader examined the blood on the ground. He's close. Another warrior touched the stone. Black lines spread through the ruin. Kale felt the search magic approaching. Rook pulled the arrow from his side without warning. Blood poured from the wound. Elena knelt beside him. Idiot. Human healing leaves marks. So does bleeding to death. The black search lines entered the chamber wall. Kale pressed one hand against the stone. He released darkness into the approaching magic. The demonic energies recognized each other. Instead of blocking the search, Kale guided it around the chamber. The black lines split above them and continued into the ground. Outside, the warrior stood. Nothing. The patrol moved deeper into the forest. Kale released the wall. Rook stared at him. That was clan tracking magic. I noticed. You redirected it. I noticed that too. No human can touch demonic power without corruption. Elena placed her hand over Rook's wound. And no demon can survive long enough to complain after losing that much blood. Holy light entered his body. Rook seized her wrist. Smoke rose where their skin touched. Elena winced, but did not stop. Kale placed his golden hand over hers. The holy power softened. Then he rested his dark hand near Rook's wound. The demonic energy in Rook's body calmed instead of resisting. Light closed the damaged flesh. Darkness preserved the natural flow of his power. The two forces worked beside each other. Rook's grip loosened. Elena watched Kale rather than the wound. You're stabilizing both sides. I'm giving them the same purpose. Rook looked between them. You two are terrible at being enemies. We met last night, Kale said. That explains the trust. There isn't a no trust, Elena replied. Kale finished the healing and withdrew his hands. Rook examined the sealed wound. You saved me. You sound disappointed. I haven't decided. The ruin chamber offered only one exit. By the time Rook could walk, snow had begun falling heavily enough to hide their trail. They moved north together. Elena kept several paces from Rook. Rook watched her whenever she touched the silver sunburst at her throat. Kale walked between them. The arrangement was less a formation than a mutual agreement not to stab across him. Why were your own people hunting you? Elena asked. Rook stepped over a fallen branch. I found something they wanted buried. Kale glanced at him. A sanctuary? Rook stopped. The forest wind moved silver hair across his face. How do you know that word? Elena removed the copied pages from her case. Rook drew his sword. Black power gathered around the blade. Where did you get those? The restricted archive beneath St. Orleans Cathedral. Rook's expression hardened. Those symbols belonged to the First Covenant. Elena's attention sharpened. The First Covenant? Between whom? Rook looked at Kale. Your church says demons destroyed the frontier. It does. Our warlords say saints poisoned it, and you believe neither. I saw the ruins. Kale touched the pendant beneath his cloak. My mother told me to find a sanctuary where light first embraced darkness. Rook's eyes moved to the faint outline of the gemstone. Who was your mother? Seraphina. Rook stared at him. Elena went still. The name seemed larger in the silent forest. Rook recovered first. The Saintess. Yes. Then your father. Valor. Rook raised his sword again. Elena's staff expanded beside Kale. He looked at both of them. This is why I stopped introducing myself properly. Rook's amber eyes searched his face. The Demon King had no son. The church says the same thing. The warlords teach that Seraphina murdered him. The church teaches that she died doing it. Elena lowered her staff first. And both records are false. Rook did not lower his blade. Kale released a small amount of golden power from one hand and darkness from the other. Neither attacked. The energies revolved slowly around the silent point between them. Rook's sword dipped. My grandmother described that symbol. What symbol? The circle your power creates. Rook sheathed his weapon. She called it the mark of the First Covenant. Elena opened the copied pages. The same divided circle appeared among the old script. What did the Covenant promise? Rook looked toward the deeper frontier. That humans and demons would never again separate what the world had created as one. Kale felt the pendant warm. The black gemstone released a thin beam of light. It touched the symbol on Elena's page. Letters hidden beneath the copied text began to glow. Elena held the page flat. A map emerged across it. Ancient roads appeared through the frontier, converging on a location marked by the divided circle. Rook leaned closer. That road doesn't exist anymore. Kale looked at the landscape. Broken pillars stood between the trees. Moss covered their bases, but each one bore a faded version of the same symbol. "It does," he said. "We've been walking on it?" They followed the pillars until nightfall. The route led into a valley concealed between steep ridges. Ruined statues watched from beneath vines, each carved as two figures standing back to back. One wore the robes of a saint. The other carried the horns of a demon. Neither stood above the other. At the far end of the valley, enormous stone doors rose from the cliff. Half had been carved from white marble, half from black volcanic rock. Roots and ice bound them together. Kale approached. The pendant lifted from his chest. Golden light spread across the white door. Darkness moved through the black. Elena stood before an inscription between them. She brushed frost from the letters. The language is older than the Dominion. Rook joined her, and older than the Ashland clans. Kale placed both hands against the doors. The power inside him responded. Light moved left. Darkness moved right. The doors resisted. He searched for the silent point and adjusted the flow. Not two powers opening two separate paths. One purpose. The doors groaned. Ice broke from the cliff. A narrow gap appeared between them. Warm air moved from the darkness beyond. They entered together. The doors closed behind them. Blue flames ignited along the walls without heat. The sanctuary opened into a circular hall filled with broken benches, collapsed pillars, and murals preserved beneath layers of dust. Elena walked toward the nearest wall. Her breathing changed. The mural showed humans and demons, building the sanctuary side by side. Another depicted children from both races sharing a meal. A third showed holy and demonic healers standing over the same wounded soldier. Rook touched a painted figure wearing the red claw symbol of his warlord clan. In the mural, the warrior knelt before a human woman and offered her a sword. That mark belonged to protectors, he said, not conquerors. Elena looked at the silver sunburst carved above the woman. The first inquisitors guarded this place with them. Kale moved toward the center of the hall. A raised platform held two statues. Seraphina stood on one side. Valor stood on the other. They were younger than in the pendant memory, but unmistakable. Their weapons were not pointed at each other. They faced a shadow rising behind them. Kale climbed the platform. The pendant projected another memory. This time, his parents stood inside the sanctuary. Dust covered their armor. Fresh wounds marked both of them. Seraphina held a fragment of white crystal. Valor held a piece of black stone. When they brought the fragments together, they formed a single gray sphere. The records were changed before either of us was born, Seraphina said. Valor looked toward the sanctuary murals. Humans inherited half the truth. Demons inherited the other half. Each side was taught that the missing half had been stolen by its enemy. The memory shifted. Church officials stood around a table with demon warlords. They did not fight. They exchanged sealed documents. Elena stepped closer. Rook's hand moved toward his sword. Seraphina's voice continued. Those who rule through fear cannot allow their people to remember that peace once existed. So they preserved the war. Generation after generation, Valor placed the gray sphere into a hollow within the platform. Something else benefited from the division. A dark shape appeared beyond the memory. No face, no body. Only a distortion where the sanctuary light disappeared. It fed upon hatred, Seraphina said. Every war strengthened it. Every lie weakened the seal that held it. The memory fractured. A final image appeared. Seraphina and Valor fighting side by side against the shadow. Then darkness swallowed them. The pendant went cold. Silence filled the sanctuary. Elena closed her copied pages. My entire order was founded to protect this covenant. Rook looked at the murals of his ancestors. My clan turned its symbol into a war banner. Neither spoke for several breaths. Kale understood their silence. The truth had not merely contradicted what they had learned. It had taken the people they believed themselves to be and replaced them with strangers. A sound echoed through the sanctuary. Stone scraping across stone. Kale turned. Symbols awakened around the platform. Golden and black light traveled through channels in the floor, converging beneath his feet. The sanctuary recognized his blood. A circular wall of light rose around him. Elena struck it with her staff. Her holy power passed through without effect. Rook's darkness did the same. Inside the circle, two figures formed, not memories. Constructs shaped from sacred and demonic energy. The first resembled an armored saint. The second resembled a horned warrior, Both raised their weapons. An inscription appeared before Cale. Balance is not inherited. Balance is proven. The saint attacked first. Cale raised a golden shield. Its sword passed through the barrier and struck his shoulder. Pain burst through him. The construct was made of holy energy. His holy defense could not stop it. The demon warrior followed. Cale answered with darkness. Its axe broke through his black flames. He retreated between them. "Elena!" he shouted. "The trial is separating your powers," she replied. "Like must not oppose like." Rook watched the constructs. Then use holy power against the demon and demonic power against the saint. Cale changed his hate. Stance. The saint attacked. Cale met its sword with a dark blade formed around his right arm. The impact drove him back, but the weapon held. The demon warrior swung its axe. Cale caught it against a golden barrier. Cracks spread through the shield. The method worked. Barely. The constructs attacked in rhythm. One forced Cale to use darkness. The other forced light. Each exchange widened the division inside him. The trial was not teaching balance. It was tempting him to alternate between extremes until one power overwhelmed the other. Cale blocked another strike and felt darkness flood his right shoulder. He answered the demon's axe with light, causing the holy half to surge in return. The silent point shrank. The constructs increased their speed. Elena followed the moving symbols around the platform. The inscription is incomplete. Rook examined the opposite side. There is another line. The two read together. What stands apart may fight forever. What moves together may change. Cale caught the saint's sword with darkness. Instead of pushing it away, he guided the strike toward the demon warrior. The holy blade cut through black armor. The demon construct staggered. Cale redirected its axe into the saint's shield. Both constructs damaged each other. The trial shifted. Their movements became less predictable, but Cale no longer met power with its opposite. He changed direction. Used force rather than resisting it. Holy energy entered the dark construct. Demonic energy entered the light. Each strike weakened the division, sustaining them. Cale formed the rotating barrier before him. The saint's sword entered from the left. The demon's axe struck from the right. He curved both attacks inward. The weapons collided. Gray light filled the circle. The constructs shattered. Their energy did not disappear. It flowed into Cale. Golden power entered his left side. Darkness entered his right. For a dangerous moment, both expanded beyond his control. Then the sanctuary symbols turned. The energies began revolving around the silent point. Cale followed the movement. He did not hold the powers apart through force. He allowed them to move. One rose as the other descended. One protected while the other broke opposition. Neither remained dominant long enough to consume him. The pain eased. The circle around the platform dissolved. Cale stepped down. A new sensation remained within his body. The light and darkness still opposed each other. But they no longer felt trapped. Elena approached. What changed? Cale lifted one hand. Golden light formed around his fingers. Black power moved beneath it, shaping the outer edge without corrupting the glow. They can share a technique. Rook crossed his arms. That barrier at the river already used both. I forced them together. Cale released the power. This time they moved together. The sanctuary, they moved together. The sanctuary trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. The front doors shook beneath an impact. Elena turned. They found us. White light pierced the seam between the doors. At the same time, red-black energy spread through the opposite wall. Church inquisitors had entered the valley. Demon warriors had followed from another passage. Both forces attacked the sanctuary without realizing the other was present. Rook drew his sword. My patrol leader will kill all three of us. Elena expanded her staff. The church commander will attempt to take Cale alive. That sounds preferable. The white door broke first. Inquisitors entered beneath silver shields. The black wall collapsed moments later. Demon warriors poured through the opening. Both groups stopped upon seeing each other. Then, the sanctuary erupted into battle. Holy blades crossed demonic axes. Ancient murals shattered beneath attacks from the descendants they depicted. Cale moved between the first two fighters. He caught the Inquisitor's sword with a dark current and turned it aside. A golden barrier stopped the demon's axe. "Look at the walls," he shouted. "Your orders are built on a lie." Neither listened. Rook intercepted his patrol leader. The older demon wore armor marked by 3 red claws. "You brought a priestess into the Covenant Hall," the warrior said. "You knew what this place was. I knew what it could prove. So you betrayed the clan. You betrayed it first." Their swords collided. Elena faced a white-robed inquisitor carrying a chain of silver scripture. "Sister Elena," he said, "step away from the abomination." "You ordered the destruction of records beneath St. Orlan's Cathedral?" preserved the faithful from corruption. You preserved them from history. The scripture chain flew toward her. Elena blocked, but each silver link wrapped around her staff. Holy pressure forced her downward. Kale started toward her. 3 soldiers blocked him. Behind them, demon warriors moved to surround Rook. Kale could fight one group, not both. The sanctuary floor lit beneath his feet. The road map from Elena's copied pages reappeared across the stone. A path extended from the central platform toward the rear wall. An escape route. Kale released a rotating wave. Golden power struck the demon warriors. Darkness broke the Inquisitor's formations. Neither force killed. Both created distance. Elena! Rook. They retreated toward the platform. Kale placed both hands against the central symbol. The hidden path opened. Stone stairs descended into darkness. Rook kicked his patrol leader backward and jumped through. Elena released a burst of holy light, broke the scripture chain, and followed. Kale entered last. The wall sealed behind him. Attack struck the stone from the other side. The passage descended steeply beneath the sanctuary. Ancient lights ignited as they ran. The route ended at an underground river. A narrow stone vessel waited beside the bank, shaped like a long crescent with no oars. Elena climbed inside. How does it move? Kale placed his hands upon 2 symbols at the front. One holy, one demonic. The vessel awakened. Gray light spread along its sides. Rook jumped aboard as the passage wall exploded behind them. Inquisitors and demon warriors entered together. Both sides raised ranged weapons. Kale sent equal power into the symbols. The vessel shot forward. Holy bolts and black spears struck the water behind them. The underground current carried them beneath the mountains. Kale maintained the flow. Too much holy energy pulled the vessel toward the right wall. Too much darkness drew it toward the left. Only balance kept it centered. The attacks disappeared behind them. The river accelerated. Stone pillars flashed past in the darkness. Elena examined the copied map. This route emerges beyond the northern ridge. Rook sat against the vessel's side, holding a cut along his arm. Both armies will search every road. We want use a road, Kale said. Rook looked at him. You have a destination. Kale thought of his mother's memory. The sanctuary had revealed the lie. It had also revealed the shadow behind it. His parents had fought something neither the church nor the demon clans acknowledged. Something strengthened by the hatred now spreading across the frontier. The sanctuary was only the beginning. Elena unfolded the glowing page. The divided circle marking the sanctuary had changed. A second symbol now appeared farther north. An eye surrounded by broken chains. Beneath it, ancient letters formed a name. The Witness Archive. Rook read the words. If that place still exists, it will contain records from before the First War. Elena looked toward the darkness ahead. It may also explain what Kale's parents sealed. Kale felt the pendant pulse once against his chest. Behind them, the sanctuary shook beneath the battle of those determined to destroy its truth. Ahead, the underground river carried a Saintess student, a demon scout, and the child of both bloodlines deeper into the forgotten world. None of them trusted the others completely, but when the vessel tilted, all 3 reached for it at the same time. Their combined weight brought it level. The river opened beneath a sky filled with stars. The vessel emerged from the mountain and entered a silent lake beyond the reach of either army. Across the water, ruins rose from the mist. At their center stood a stone monument carved with one final inscription. Elena read it aloud. The First War began with a lie. The pendant grew warm. Somewhere beneath the ruins, something answered. The answer beneath the ruins did not speak. It breathed. A slow pulse moved through the lake, strong enough to ripple the water around the stone vessel. The monument answered with a faint gray glow, and the mist surrounding the ruins withdrew as though pulled by an unseen tide. A road appeared beneath the surface. Wide stone steps descended from the monument into the lake, untouched by algae or mud. Each step bore the divided circle of the First Covenant. Elena studied the dark water. The archive is beneath us. Rook looked toward the distant shore. So are both armies? Eventually. Kale stepped out of the vessel. His boot landed upon the first submerged stair without breaking the surface. Gray light spread beneath him, turning the water solid around his feet. The pendant pulsed again. The road continued downward. Elena followed first. Holy light gathered around her boots, but the stone rejected it until Rook placed one foot beside hers. When their powers touched the same step, the gray path stabilized. Rook frowned. This place demands both, or someone who carries both, Elena said. Kale descended ahead of them. The lake closed overhead without touching his clothes. Water formed a moving ceiling above the path, filled with silver fish and drifting strands of grass. Moonlight fractured through the surface until the ruins disappeared behind darkness. The deeper they went, the warmer the air became. The road ended before a circular door embedded in the lakebed. There was no handle, only two handprints. One human, one demonic. Cale placed his hands over both. The door did not move. Elena stepped beside the human mark. Ruck took the demonic one. Together, they pressed. The lakebed opened. Water rushed toward the widening gap, then struck an invisible boundary and divided around them. Stone stairs continued into a dry chamber beneath the earth. The three crossed the threshold. The door sealed above them. Rows of towering shelves extended beyond the reach of the blue flames along the walls. Crystal tablets rested beside metal cylinders, bound books, carved bones, and memory stones of every shape. The archive had not preserved one civilization. It had preserved all of them. Cale approached the nearest shelf. The labels were written in two scripts: Holy Dominion, Ashland clans, Frontier cities, Mixed settlements. Elena touched one of the crystal tablets. Light rose from it, forming a list of names in the air. Thousands. She read the heading: Casualties of the First Separation. Rook moved to another shelf. His expression hardened. This is a registry of clans that opposed the First War. How many survived? Cale asked. Rook reached the final line. None. The central chamber contained a circular table large enough for 50 people. Broken chairs surrounded it, some designed for humans, others shaped for bodies with wings, tails, or horns. At the center rested a sphere divided into white and black halves. Cale drew closer. The sphere turned. An old voice filled the chamber. State the Covenant authority. Elena raised the silver sunburst at her throat. No response. Ruck pressed the red claw symbol on his armor. The sphere remained dark. Cale placed the pendant against it. Gold and black light spread through the table. Authority recognized. Bloodline of the final wardens. Witness access granted. The shelves awakened. Thousands of symbols flowed toward the central table, forming a map of the world as it had existed before the borders of the Holy Dominion and Ashlands. No veil frontier divided them. Cities stood across the entire continent. Human settlements appeared beside demon strongholds. Trade roads crossed freely between them. Temples shared walls with clan halls. Elena leaned over the map. This civilization was larger than both our kingdoms combined. It was one civilization, Rook said. The archive voice continued. Record requested. Cale looked at the united map. The origin of holy and demonic power. The world vanished. A memory replaced it. Not his parents' memory. Something older. A vast plain stretched beneath a colorless sky. At its center, a single gray flame burned above the earth. People approached from every direction. Humans, demons, creatures Cale had never seen. Each extended a hand toward the flame. When they drew from it, the power changed according to their intention. A healer received warm golden light. A warrior received black force. A farmer summoned rain. A grieving mother formed a barrier around her child. The powers differed, but every current remained connected to the same source. The archive voice spoke over the vision. Before the separation, power answered purpose. Form followed intention. No energy was holy. No energy was demonic. Those classifications did not exist. The memory shifted. A group of robed figures stood around the gray flame. They placed white crystals on one side, black stones on the other. The source began to divide. Why? Elena whispered. The archive answered. Control. The robed figures taught humans to draw only from the light. They taught demons to draw only from darkness. The more each side rejected the other, the farther the gray flames split. Power became easier to command. More predictable, more limited. The rulers of each faction gained authority over the techniques their people could learn. Then the first sickness appeared, a human child born with darkness beneath her skin. A demon healer whose hands produced golden light. Both were dragged before their leaders. Both were executed. Cale's jaw tightened. The memory accelerated. Laws, purges, burned libraries, destroyed mixed settlements. Prophets declaring the opposing power corrupt. The united civilization fractured. At the center of every conflict, hatred flowed away from the dying and into the earth. Something beneath the world drank it. The shape Cale had seen in his parents' memory emerged for one instant, a darkness without form. The archive named it, the Severed One. The vision ended. Elena stepped back from the table. The church teaches that holy power came from the first dawn. Ruck stared at the blank air. The warlords teach that darkness was born in the world's core. Both stories were created after the separation. Kale, after the separation, said. The sphere turned again. Further record available. Kale looked toward it. How was the severed one imprisoned? The archive lights dimmed, restricted. Why? Final warden authority incomplete. Kale touched the pendant. What is missing? Two. Living keys. A golden symbol appeared above the table. A black symbol formed beside it. Descendant of the first saint. Descendant of the first demon guardian. Elena and Ruck exchanged a look. Kale understood first. The two of you. Elena shook her head. I am not descended from the first saint. The archive projected the silver sunburst, not the polished emblem worn by modern inquisitors. The original mark engraved in the sanctuary. The bloodline passed through guardians, not rulers. Elena looked at the emblem at her throat. Her fingers tightened around it. Rook's red claw symbol began to glow. He swore softly. My grandmother said our clan once protected something beneath the frontier. The archive sphere opened. Inside rested 3 narrow crystal shards. 1 gold, 1 black, 1 gray. Place blood upon the keys. Elena did not move. Can we trust this place? Rook looked around the shelves. It has lied less than our kingdoms. That is a low standard. Kale took the gray shard. The instant his blood touched it, the pendant grew hot against his chest. A map formed above the table. 3 locations appeared. The sanctuary behind them. The archive beneath them. A third point far to the east, beneath the holy capital. The location glowed with red light. The primary seal, the archive said. Kale stared at the holy capital. My parents are there. Probability. Hi! Elena placed blood on the golden shard. The eastern seal expanded. A web of smaller barriers spread from it through the frontier in both kingdoms. Many had already failed. Rook activated the black shard. A chamber appeared beneath the seal. 2 figures stood inside. Seraphina, Valor. Empty. Both held chains of gray power connected to a dark shape below them. Alive. Kale gripped the table. How long have they been there? 18 years. Why didn't they return? Release would collapse the primary seal. The answer entered him like cold steel. His parents had not abandoned him. They had not been hiding. They had spent his entire life holding the world together beneath the capital of the church that claimed they were dead. Elena looked at the strain lines spreading through the projected chains. How long can they maintain it? Current estimate unavailable. Why? External interference detected. The map shifted. White power drilled into one side of the seal. Black power struck the other. The church and the demon warlords were both weakening it. Not accidentally. Deliberately. Rook leaned closer. They know. Some of them, Elena said. The leaders who changed the histories. A new figure appeared above the map. High Inquisitor Lucian stood before a white altar. Across the frontier, a massive demon in red-black armor stood before a volcanic gate. Warlord Gorthak. Both raised weapons carrying fragments of the original gray source. The severed one moved beneath them. Kale saw thin strands of darkness connecting the ancient entity to both leaders. It is influencing them, he said. Elena shook her head. Influence does not remove choice. The archive voice confirmed her judgment. Subjects retain independent will. Rook's mouth hardened. They chose power. The table shook. Several shelves flickered. Unauthorized entry. A white symbol appeared at the southern entrance. A black symbol appeared at the western passage. Both armies had reached the lake. Kale took the 3 crystal keys. Elena caught his wrist. They belong to the archive. They point to the seal. They may also be the only way to open it. Then we need them. The sphere did not object. Instead, it projected a final instruction. Preserve the witness. Truth requires survival. Stone doors slammed shut throughout the archive. Elena opened the copied map. There are 2 exits. Rook looked at the symbols moving closer. And 2 armies? They will assume we escaped together, Kale said. Elena understood. You want to divide. Rook glanced toward the western passage. My people want me alive. For now. The church wants the same from me, Elena said. Kale placed the golden key in Elena's hand and the black key in Rook's. They cannot be allowed to obtain both. Elena looked at the gray shard remaining with him. And you? They want me more than either of you. That is not a plan, she said. It not is the part of the plan that makes yours work. Rook approached the western exit. If we are separated, where do we meet? The archive map displayed an abandoned bridge north of the lake. 3 nights, Kale said. Elena studied him. You intend to draw both forces away. I intend to keep moving. That is not what I asked. The southern door shook beneath a holy impact. Rook opened the western passage. I will return to the bridge. Elena stepped toward the southern route. So will I. Neither sounded confident that all three would make it. Cale closed his hand around the gray shard. Then 3 nights, the archive extinguished its lights. They separated in darkness. Cale moved east through a narrow maintenance corridor, while white and black power broke into the main chamber behind him. Voices echoed among the shelves. Secure every record. Burn what cannot be carried. Find the keys. The archive had survived centuries of war. It would not survive those who feared its truth. Cale reached a stone ladder. Above it, the gray shard pointed toward the lake surface. He climbed. The passage opened beneath the ruins near the eastern shore. Mist concealed him for several steps. Then holy chains struck his back. Cale hit the ground. Silver links wrapped around his chest and arms before he could reach the silent point. Consecrated symbols ignited along the chain, forcing his golden power to obey while suppressing the darkness. A boot pressed between his shoulders. High Inquisitor Lucien stood above him. His damaged armor had been replaced, but a pale scar crossed his temple where Cale had thrown him through the village shrine. You continued to make survival difficult. Cale looked toward the lake. Disappointed? No. Lucien pulled the chain tighter. Every display of power strengthens the case against you. Cale felt the gray key beneath his cloak. Lucien had not detected it, yet. Where is the priestess? I lost her. The demon. I tried to lose him too. Lucien crouched. You mistake defiance for control? No. Oh. I learned that from you. The chain flared. Pain struck every nerve at once. Cale bit down before a sound escaped. Lucien watched without satisfaction. That made him more dangerous. He did not enjoy suffering. He simply considered it useful. Take him to St. Orlan's fortress, Lucien ordered. The girl will come for him. Cale was dragged toward the southern road. He counted the soldiers, 24. 4 scripture priests, 6 mounted inquisitors. Lucien, too many to defeat without losing control. He allowed the chains to hold him. The darkness hated the decision. The light understood restraint, but disliked the soldiers' intentions. Cale gave neither power or authority over the choice. St. Orlan's fortress stood where the Black River narrowed between cliffs. White walls rose directly from the stone, blocking the only safe road between the Dominion and the frontier. Cale entered through gates carved with scenes of Seraphina's supposed victory over Valor. The relief showed his mother standing over his father's corpse. Cale looked away. Lucien noticed. History wounds you. Lies do. All histories are shaped. That doesn't make them equal. Lucien led him beneath the fortress. The prison had not been designed for ordinary criminals. Consecrated chains hung from every wall. White crystals within the ceiling drained demonic power from the air. Cale was secured inside a circular cell. The silver chains were removed only after golden restraints closed around his wrists and ankles. Lucien stood beyond the bars. Where is the archive key? Cale remained silent. Lucien raised one hand. A guard carried in Elena's leather case. The copied pages had been torn and burned along the edges. We found this in the southern passage. Cale's chest tightened. Lucien opened the case. The girl was always too curious. Where is she? Near enough to hear you. A door opened beyond the prison corridor. 2 guards dragged Elena past the cell. Blood marked one side of her face. Silver scripture bound her arms, and the golden key hung around Lucien's neck. She met Cale's gaze. No apology, no fear, only a warning. Do not react. Cale forced his hands to remain still. Lucien smiled faintly. Trust is remarkably easy to create among the hunted. You taught us. I gave you a common enemy. He touched the golden key. What does it open? Elena answered first. A library. Lucien struck her across the face. Cale's darkness surged. The restraints tightened automatically, drawing blood from his wrists. Elena straightened. Lucien looked at Cale. And the boy will demonstrate why your answer is insufficient. Elena's eyes moved toward the restraints. She saw the black veins rising beneath Cale's skin. Cale, one word. A reminder. Equal purpose. He found the silent point. The darkness settled. Lucien watched the change. You improve quickly. Cale looked at the golden key. You already know what it opens. Lucien's expression remained still. You attacked the seal. The guards shifted. Elena looked at Lucien. So, the archive record was true. Lucien dismissed the guards with a gesture. Only the 3 of them remained in the corridor. You believe truth is valuable because you have never governed anyone, he said. You preserved a war, Elena replied. I preserved order, by feeding an ancient prison, by controlling the release. Cale studied him. You think you can use the severed one? Lucien's eyes settled upon him. Your parents discovered the same power and wasted it maintaining a dying balance. They imprisoned it. They feared it, you serve it. I serve humanity. The certainty in his voice was worse than madness. Lucian truly believed that every life sacrificed beneath his command became justified once placed beneath the word humanity. Elena saw it too. The first saint stood beside demons. The first saint lived before demons became what they are. They became that because your predecessors separated the source. Lucian's hand tightened around the key. The separation created civilization. Power gained purpose. Humanity gained unity. It gained an enemy, Kale said. Every civilization requires one. Silence followed. Lucian turned toward Elena. You will translate the key inscriptions? No. You already did in the archive. I won't do it again. Lucian looked toward Kale. She will. He left them in adjoining cells. The prison corridor returned to silence. Kale waited until the guard's footsteps faded. Elena, I'm alive. The key. Real? I noticed. I altered the map before they took it. Kale looked through the bars. Where does Lucian think the seal entrance is? Beneath the eastern entrance is. Beneath the eastern entrance is Cathedral. And where is it? Beneath the western palace. Despite everything. Kale almost smiled. You lied to a high inquisitor. I shaped the historical record. Apparently all leaders do it. She sat against the wall. They captured me before I reached the bridge road. Rook? I don't know. Kale tested the restraints. Holy energy flowed through them in a repeating pattern. Each pulse commanded the golden half of his power to remain still. The darkness could break the metal, but the instant it surged, the sealing crystals would drain it. Elena watched him. You cannot overpower the cell, I know. Then what are you doing? Learning its purpose. He closed his eyes. The restraints were designed for demons. They assumed holy power belonged to the prison. They did not suppress it completely. They controlled its direction. Kale allowed his golden energy to enter the restraints. The commands pressed into him. Submit. Remain. Purify corruption. He did not resist. He followed the current through the floor, into the walls, and upward to the crystals. Then he released a thread of darkness inside the golden flow. The prison did not recognize it as an attack. The two powers moved together, not forced, not hidden, sharing a purpose. Understand. Kale's awareness spread through the fortress. He felt every cell connected to the same system. Dozens of prisoners. Most carried traces of demonic power. Some carried holy power that did not match approved church forms. At the deepest level, one presence burned brighter than the rest. A fragment of the gray source. Lucian had installed it beneath the prison. The entire fortress drew power from stolen balance. Kale opened his eyes. The prison is built around a covenant fragment. Elena moved closer to the bars. Can you reach it? Yes. Can you control it? Kale looked at the blood gathering beneath his restraints. Probably. She closed her eyes. Briefly, I'm beginning to dislike that word. The fortress alarm sounded. Not the high bells of a church attack. A low horn answered from the northern wall. Demon forces had reached St. Orleans. Kale felt black power strike the outer defenses. Elena stood. Rook? No, too many. The prison shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Church soldiers ran through the corridor. Warlord assault. Seal the lower cells. Move the apostate. The guards entered Elena's cell. Kale reached through the prison network. He touched the gray fragment. The source responded instantly. Not like holy power. Not like darkness. It contained both without separation. Kale gave it one purpose. Open. Every restraint in the prison released. The golden bands around his wrists shattered. Cell doors swung outward. The ceiling crystals changed from white to gray. The guards turned. Elena struck the first beneath the chin with her bound hands. Kale caught the second guard's sword arm through the bars and pulled him into the metal. The cell opened. Kale tore the scripture from Elena's wrists. She took the fallen guard's staff. Prisoners emerged throughout the corridor. Some attacked the guards. Others fled. Kale raised his voice. The eastern stairs lead to the courtyard. Avoid the northern wall. A horn sounded below them. Closer. Demon warriors entered the lower prison through a breach. Elena looked down the stairs. They are not here to free anyone. Red claw banners appeared through the smoke. At their head walked Rook's patrol leader. He dragged Rook behind him in black chains. Rook's armor had been removed. Blood covered his shoulders, but he remained conscious. The patrol leader saw Kale, balanced child. Rook lifted his head. Do not let him take the gray key. The demon commander pulled the chain. Rook fell to one knee. Elena, Kale said. I see him. Church soldiers gathered at the upper stairs. Demon warriors advanced from below. Prisoners crowded between them. Cale stepped into the center of the corridor. The powers within him began to rotate. Golden light spread toward the upper stairs. Darkness flowed toward the lower. Both armies prepared to attack. Cale drove his hands together. The two energies met at the silent point. A gray barrier expanded through the corridor. It passed over the prisoners without resistance. Church weapons struck it from above. Demon attacks struck from below. The barrier absorbed both. Cale felt every impact. The powers tried to split according to their origins. He kept them moving. Holy force entered one side and emerged through darkness as harmless motion. Demonic force entered the other and passed through light without corruption. The corridor shook. Stone cracked beneath Cale's feet. He could hold the barrier. He could not move while doing it. Elena, she understood. The priestess ran through the gray field. It recognized her as someone Cale intended to protect and offered no resistance. The patrol leader swung his sword toward her. Rook wrapped his chained arms around the demon's legs. The strike missed. Elena drove her staff into the leader's chest and released holy force at point-blank range. His armor shattered. Rook rolled away as she struck the chains binding him. The golden key at Lucien's neck had taught her enough. Holy light entered the demonic metal and broke its command structure. The chains fell. Rook seized the patrol leader's sword. The commander rose. You shamed the Red Claw. Rook turned the blade toward him. You turned a guardian's mark into a collar. They collided. Rook fought without armor, weakened and bleeding. The patrol leader possessed greater strength, but Rook no longer fought to prove loyalty to a clan. He fought to reject what it had become. Each movement grew cleaner. He yielded ground instead of contesting power, then used the commander's momentum against him. Cale recognized the same lesson as the sanctuary trial. What moved together could change. Rook redirected a heavy strike into the prison wall. The patrol leader's sword lodged in stone. Rook placed his blade at the man's throat. Yield. The commander reached for a hidden knife. Rook struck him unconscious with the sword hilt. Elena reached Cale's side. You're bleeding. Cale looked down. The holy restraints had cut his wrists, but the blood now flowed upward along his arms, drawn toward the rotating barrier. The gray power was consuming more than his energy. It was using his body as the meeting point. I can hold it long enough. For what? Rook joined them. Cale looked toward the prisoners trapped between both armies. For everyone to leave. Elena raised her staff. Golden symbols spread beneath the civilians. Rook planted his stolen sword. Dark mist formed along the walls. Together, they opened a protected route through the western service tunnel. Prisoners began moving. Church soldiers shouted for them to return. Demon warriors demanded surrender. No one obeyed. The last prisoner entered the tunnel. Cale released the barrier. Stored force exploded in both directions. The church soldiers were driven up the stairs. The demon warriors crashed into the lower walls. Cale collapsed. Elena caught one arm. Rook caught the other. Move, Rook said. They dragged him into the tunnel. Behind them, Lucien's voice cut through the chaos. Seal every exit. Elena looked back. The High Inquisitor stood at the end of the corridor. The golden key remained around his neck. He raised one hand toward Cale. White symbols appeared beneath the floor. Cale felt the gray fragment below the prison respond to Lucien's command. The stolen source began to overload. He's destroying the fortress, Elena said. No, Cale answered. He's destroying the evidence. They reached the western gate as the ground rose beneath them. Stone towers split. White flames poured from the prison windows. Cale saw civilians still crossing the outer yard. If the fragment detonated, no one would escape. He stopped. Rook tightened his grip. What are you doing? The source beneath us. You cannot return. I don't need to. Cale pressed both hands against the courtyard stones. The gray fragment answered through the prison network. Lucien had commanded it to separate violently. Holy energy surged toward one half. Demonic energy rushed toward the other. The same division that had created the first war now threatened to tear the fortress apart. Cale reached between them. The pressure struck him. His bones felt too narrow for the power passing through them. He could not absorb it. He could not suppress it. He gave it motion. The golden force curved. The darkness followed. The fragment began to rotate. The explosion became a current. Gray light erupted from the fortress towers and swept into the sky. The clouds divided above St. Orleans. For one moment, the entire frontier saw the original power. Not holy, not demonic. Whole. Not demonic, whole. The fragment beneath the prison cracked. Its energy flowed through Cale and dispersed across the land. The fortress stopped collapsing. Cale remained kneeling after the light faded. He could no longer feel his hands. Elena pressed healing power into his back. It passed through him without effect. Ruck looked toward the northern gate. More warlord troops are coming. Church riders gathered along the southern road. Elena lifted Kale. The bridge. Rook took his other side. 3 nights. It's the 3rd night, Elena said. Kale forced his feet to move. Then we're late. They left St. Orleans through the western gate while both armies were grouped behind them. The abandoned bridge stood 6 miles north, crossing a ravine filled with permanent mist. They reached it near dawn. No soldiers followed. Neither army knew which direction the 3 had taken after the gray eruption. Kale sat against the broken parapet. His body had begun shaking. Elena examined his eyes. Gold flickered in one. Black moved through the other. The balance is failing. Rook crouched beside them. He dispersed a covenant fragment through himself. I noticed. Kale heard their voices from a great distance. The silent point had disappeared. Light flooded through his left side, trying to repair every injury at once. Darkness consumed his right, trying to replace what had been damaged with raw strength. Both powers wanted to save him. Their methods would kill him. Elena placed the golden key against his chest. Ruck did the same with the black. The keys responded. For a moment, the 2 energies slowed. Kale reached for the gray shard. His hand could not close. Ruck placed it between the other 2. The 3 crystals formed a divided circle. The pendant opened. Seraphina and Valor appeared above the bridge. The memory found Kale before he could look toward it. He stood within a chamber beneath the holy capital. His mother held one side of a gray chain. His father held the other. Between them, the severed one pressed against the primary seal. Seraphina's voice entered the memory. If Kale reaches the archive, he will learn what the world was. Valor looked toward the dark shape below. He will also learn what we left him. We left him a war. We left him a choice. The demonkin's armor was broken. Darkness leaked from wounds that never close. Seraphina's holy light had dimmed to a pale glow. They had already spent years maintaining the seal. The memory shifted. Lucian stood beyond the chamber barrier, younger but unmistakable. Beside him stood Warlord Gorthak. They faced each other through the seal. You cannot hold it forever, Lucian said. Seraphina tightened her grip on the chain. We only need to hold it until the truth survives us. Gorthak laughed. Truth does not command armies. No, Valor said. Fear does. The 2 leaders placed fragments of the gray source against opposite sides of the seal. The severed one stirred. Seraphina looked toward the hidden memory crystal. Toward Kale. Listen carefully. The enemy beneath us cannot create hatred. It can only strengthen what already exists. It whispers certainty. It turns fear into permission. It makes cruelty feel necessary. Valor pulled the chain tighter. Vitor pulled the chain tight. As darkness climbed his arm, it will speak through saints, through demons, through anyone who believes the world must be divided to remain safe. The memory trembled. Lucian and Gorthak attacked the seal together. Seraphina's voice sharpened. The primary seal has 3 anchors: the Covenant Sanctuary, the Witness Archive, the Heart Gate beneath the capital. If the first 2 awaken, the final path will open. But do not come for us until you can maintain balance without becoming its vessel. Kale saw himself kneeling on the bridge through the memory. Blood beneath his hands. Power tearing through him. Power tearing through him. His mother seemed to see it too. Balance does not mean carrying everything alone. The words struck deeper than the pain. Valor looked beside her. Power shared willingly becomes stronger without becoming heavier. The memory showed 3 figures standing around a divided circle. Human, demon, balance bearer. The keys beneath Kale's chest responded. Elena's golden power entered first, not as a command, an offering. Rook's darkness followed, not as hunger, trust. Kale stopped trying to hold both alone. He allowed their powers to support the rotation. The silent point returned, larger than before. Not empty, shared. The golden current slowed. The darkness released its grip. Kale's breathing steadied. The memory faded. Elena remained with one hand against the golden key. Ruck held the black. Neither pulled away until Kale opened his eyes. The dawn had reached the ravine. You stayed, Kale said. Ruck sat back. We agreed on 3 nights. Elena removed the keys. And you still owe us answers. Kale looked east. Beyond the frontier, the holy capital stood over the primary seal. His parents waited beneath it. Lucian possessed armies, authority, and part of the original source. Gorthak commanded the same from the Ashlands. Both would now know the sanctuary and archive had awakened. The war would no longer remain hidden. The war would no longer remain hidden. A crack appeared in the gray shard. The sound was small, yet far beneath the earth, something enormous answered. The bridge shook, birds fled the ravine. Across the eastern horizon, a column of black light rose beneath the morning sun. Elena unfolded the damaged map. The symbol marking the heart gate had changed. One of its 3 chains was broken. Ruck looked toward the light. The seal. Kale stood despite the weakness in his legs. The eternal balance moved inside him with a new rhythm. Not mastered, not safe, but no longer his burden alone. The severed one is waking. Far away, church bells began ringing. From the ashlands came the answer of war drums. The 2 kingdoms prepared to blame each other for the darkness rising between them. Kale closed his hand around the cracked gray key. This time, he would reach the truth before their lies did. The black column remained visible for 2 days. It did not move. It did not fade. It rose beyond the eastern horizon like a wound through the sky, dark enough to remain visible beneath sunlight, and surrounded by a ring of pale clouds. Every road leading toward the Holy Dominion filled with refugees. Farmers abandoned villages near the frontier. Merchants turned their carts west. Church patrols moved east in disciplined columns, while proclaiming that demon forces had attacked the primary seal. Across the northern ridges, Ashland war bands marched beneath red banners, claiming the Dominion had begun a final invasion. Neither army needed proof. Fear had already chosen the explanation it preferred. Kale, Elena, and Ruck traveled against the flow. They kept to abandoned paths and broken trade roads preserved beneath the forest. The first covenant markers guided them wherever modern maps failed, but each awakened stone revealed the same warning. The heart gate was weakening. 1 chain had broken. A second was under direct attack. If the final chain failed, the severed one would no longer require Lucian or Gorthak to act through. It would be free to speak to every frightened mind at once. On the 3rd morning, they reached the edge of the Dominion. White stone replaced the silver trees. Shrines stood at every intersection, each crowded with people praying for protection from demons they had never seen. Kale kept his hood low. Elena no longer wore the silver sunburst openly. She had wrapped it in cloth and tied it beneath her armor, not from shame, but because Lucian had declared her an apostate throughout every diocese between the Black River and the capital. Ruck had cut the red claw symbol from his clothing. The mark remained on the hilt of his sword. He had not removed that. "The patrol ahead has 6 riders," he said from the ridge. Elena studied the road below. "They are checking travel papers." Kale looked toward the line of refugees waiting beneath the gatehouse. Children cried beside overloaded carts. Elderly travelers stood in the mud while soldiers examined every face against wanted notices. His own image had changed again. The latest drawing showed black horns rising from his head and flames covering half his face. "They're becoming more creative," Ruck said. Kale folded the notice. "At least they improved the hair." Elena took it from him and pushed it beneath a stone. "We cannot cross through the checkpoint." "We can't leave those people there either," Kale said. The line had stopped moving. A priest stood beside the gate with a white crystal mounted on a staff. Every traveler was forced to touch it before entering Dominion territory. The crystal detected demonic power. A thin man near the front placed his hand against it. Black mist appeared inside the stone. The soldiers seized him. His wife screamed. "I'm not a demon," the man shouted. "I worked near the frontier mines." "The residue gets into everyone." The priest stepped back as though the man carried a disease. "Corruption does not require consent." The soldiers dragged him toward a prison wagon already holding more than 20 people. Some had horns. Some were human. One was a child with faint black markings around her wrist. Kale started down the ridge. Elena caught his cloak. "The moment you reveal yourself, the patrol will signal the capital. They are imprisoning anyone who has touched demonic energy. That is the new law. That does not make it right." "No," Elena said. The soldiers had left the road ahead clear. Too clear. Ruck followed his attention. "They expect you to interfere. Then they know which direction we're traveling, or Lucian knows what kind of person you are," Elena said. Kale understood the warning. Lucian did not need to know their path. He only needed to create enough cruelty along every road and wait for Kale to reveal himself. Rook looked toward the gatehouse roof. A signal crystal. Elena followed his gaze. If it activates. Riders from the eastern garrison will arrive within minutes." Kale stepped back from the ridge. "Then, we disable it first." They entered the checkpoint from 3 directions. Ruck moved through the drainage channel beneath the road. Elena joined the refugee line with her hood drawn. Kale circled behind the prison wagon. The child inside set apart from the adults, trying to hide the black marks beneath her sleeves. Kale approached beneath a veil of darkness. The power bent the shadows around him, but maintaining it near so many holy wards required constant adjustment. The Dominion's barriers did not merely repel demonic energy. They commanded nearby light to expose it. Kale allowed his golden power to answer the wards. The light accepted him. The darkness moved inside it. The disguise held. Rook reached the gatehouse first. A guard disappeared beneath the floor without a sound. The signal crystal dimmed. Elena reached the inspection table. The priest held out the detection staff. Hand. She placed her palm against the crystal. Golden light filled it. The priest relaxed. Then Elena released a second pulse through the stone. But had not released a second pulse through the stone. Every detection crystal at the checkpoint shattered simultaneously. Soldiers turned toward the sound. Kale broke the lock on the prison wagon. Move quietly, he told the prisoners. The thin man stared at the golden black light around his hands. You're him, not loudly. The child stepped from the wagon. Her black markings spread in fear. A soldier saw her. Stop! Kale raised a golden barrier. The soldier's spear struck and slid aside. Rook emerged from beneath the gatehouse, seized the man's armor, and pulled him behind the wagon. Elena overturned the inspection table. East side. The prisoners ran. Refugees scattered with them, not knowing whether the attack had freed criminals or exposed a trap. The checkpoint commander drew his sword. Signal the garrison. The signal is gone, Rook said. He kicked the broken crystal from the roof. The commander looked at Kale. Recognition hardened his face. Child of blasphemy. Kale drew darkness around one hand and light around the other. Let them leave. You are confirming every accusation against you. No, you did that when you put a child in a cage. The commander released a holy arc. Kale curved a gray barrier around the refugees. The attack struck, traveled across the rotating surface, and vanished into the ground. Soldiers advanced from both sides. Elena planted her staff. A ring of golden symbols spread beneath their feet. Sleep. The light flashed. 3 men collapsed. The others resisted through consecrated armor. Rook moved among them before their vision cleared. He used the flat of his sword, striking joints and breaking formations without taking lives. Kale reached the child. She had frozen beside the ditch. Black energy poured from her hands as panic overtook her. The nearest soldiers raised crossbows. Kale stepped between them. Bolts struck his barrier. The child looked up at him. I didn't do anything. I know. My mother said the marks would go away. They might, and if they don't, Kale held out his hand. Then they're still yours. She took it. The black power around her softened. Kale guided her toward the fleeing prisoners. The checkpoint commander rose behind them. A white spear formed above his hand. Elena saw it first. Kale. The spear flew. Kale turned too late. A black blade struck the holy weapon from the side. Both attacks shattered in the air. The checkpoint commander stared toward the ridge. A line of armored demons stood above the road. Refugees screamed. Soldiers formed ranks. Rook's expression changed. The demon at the center carried a banner marked by a red crown split with 3 claws. Warlord Gorthak's personal guard. Their captain lowered his weapon. By command of the Ashland throne, surrender the balance bearer. The Dominion commander raised his sword. This is holy territory. The demon captain smiled. Not for long. Both forces charged. Kale released the child's hand. Run to the forest. Do not stop. She obeyed. The road erupted. Holy light crossed black fire above the fleeing civilians. The checkpoint walls broke under the first clash. Soldiers who had been hunting Kale moments earlier now fought demons trying to take him alive. The severed one did not need either side to win, only to keep fighting. Kale entered the center of the battle. His gray barrier expanded low across the road. It struck ankles, weapons, and shield edges, separating combatants without crushing them. Stop! He shouted. No one listened. The demon captain hurled a black spear toward Elena. Kale redirected it upward. The Dominion commander answered with a white blade aimed at Rook. Kale caught that too. Each attack added force to the rotating barrier. The pressure grew. Unlike the prison, no shared structure helped channel it. Kale became the meeting point again. Blood warmed his palms. Elena reached his left side. Rook took his right. They placed their keys against his arms. Golden and black energy stabilized the rotation. The barrier widened. This time, its purpose did not come from Kale alone. Protect the civilians, break the battle, create a path. The road cracked from one side to the other. A wall of gray light rose between the 2 armies. Every holy technique that touched it lost its command. Every demonic attack lost its hunger. Weapons became metal again. Flames collapsed into smoke. Silence spread across the checkpoint. Kale looked at both groups. You are being used, the Dominion commander pointed at the demons. They attacked our land. The demon captain pointed toward the prison wagon. You imprison our blood, and both of you arrived knowing I would be here, Kale said. Neither answered. Cale saw the truth in the silence. Lucian had sent the checkpoint orders. Gorthak had sent the interception force. Each had known enough about the other's movement to guarantee a clash. "You were not sent to capture me," Cale said. "You were sent to fight in front of me." The demon captain's black powers stirred. "Do not presume to understand a warlord's command." "I understand it better than you do." Cale lifted the gray shard. A projection formed above the road. The united civilization from the archive appeared between the armies. Humans and demons walked the same streets. The first Covenant Hall stood at its center. The Dominion soldiers stared. The demons lowered their weapons by degrees. Then a second image appeared. Lucian and Gorthak attacking the primary seal together. The road erupted in shouting. Forgery. Church trickery. Demonic illusion. The severed one's influence moved through them like wind through dry grass. Cale felt it. Not words. Certainty. Each soldier became suddenly more convinced that the image had been created by the enemy. Cale closed his hand around the shard. The projection vanished. "Do you feel that?" he asked. The thought that came too quickly? The certainty that requires no proof. The Dominion commander's grip tightened. The demon captain's eyes narrowed. "That is what lies beneath the capital," Cale continued. "It cannot command you. It makes the cruelest answer feel like the obvious one." The black column pulsed on the horizon. Several soldiers flinched. The child Cale had freed stood at the forest edge. Her voice carried across the quiet road. "My father is human." No one moved. "My mother had horns." She pulled back her sleeve. The black markings around her wrist remained. Which side am I supposed to hate? The question did what Cale's proof could not. It entered the silence without demanding allegiance. The Dominion commander lowered his sword first. "Not fully." "Enough." The demon captain looked toward the black column. "We were ordered to take the boy to the eastern war camp." Cale studied him. "Gorthak is there. He will arrive by nightfall." Elena looked toward the capital road. "Lucian will be waiting too. The Cian will be waiting too." Armies had begun gathering around the Heart Gate. Cale could avoid them and search for another entrance, or he could go where both enemies expected him. His parents had warned him not to come until he could maintain balance without becoming its vessel. He understood now. The warning had not meant mastery. It had meant not standing alone. "We go east," Cale said. Rook looked at the demon captain. With them? With anyone willing to see the truth before choosing a side? The Dominion commander glanced at the civilians disappearing into the forest. "If we abandon the checkpoint, the garrison will brand us traitors." Elena met his gaze. "Lucian branded me an apostate for reading history." The commander looked at the broken detection crystals. Then, at the child. He removed the silver sunburst from his shoulder. "I will not march beneath the Inquisition." The demon captain watched him. After a moment, he cut the red crown from his banner. "I marched for the Ashlands." Rook stepped closer. "Which Ashlands?" The captain looked at the old red claw mark on Rook's sword. "The one that existed before Gorthak. It was not peace. It was not trust." But the two small forces left the checkpoint along the same road. Humans kept to one side. Demons kept to the other. Cale, Elena, and Rook walked between them. By sunset, they had become an army of 43. By midnight, they were more than 200. Word traveled faster than official orders. A mining settlement joined after learning the church intended to evacuate only those without demonic residue. A group of Ashland healers joined after Gorthak's officers seized their supplies and left mixed blood villages without medicine. 3 priests abandoned their convoy when Elena showed them the original Covenant emblem. A horned blacksmith traveled with them because his human wife had been denied entry through the southern gate. No one agreed on what should replace the old order. They agreed only that Lucian and Gorthak could not be allowed to break the seal. The holy capital appeared on the 5th day. Its white towers rose from a wide plain, surrounded by 3 layers of walls and crowned by the grand cathedral. The black column did not stand beyond the city. It rose from beneath it. Cracks of darkness spread through the marble streets, visible even from miles away. 2 armies surrounded the capital. The Holy Dominion occupied the southern field beneath silver banners. Ashland forces held the north beneath red-black standards. Between them stood the western gate, closed and abandoned. Neither army had attacked the other. Not yet. They were waiting for Cale. Elena examined the formations from a ruined chapel. Lucian controls the cathedral and the southern gate. Rook pointed toward the northern siege lines. Gorthak controls the old palace district. Cale looked at the black column. "The Heart Gate is beneath the western palace, which lies between them," Elena said. The road behind them filled with their newly joined followers, 200 against tens of thousands. The Dominion commander who had abandoned the checkpoint entered the chapel. Scouts report both armies have standing orders to capture Kale alive, Rook's former demon captain added. And to kill anyone traveling with him. Elena looked at Kale. So they still need your blood. The seal recognizes my parents' line. Kale placed the 3 keys on the chapel altar. The golden and black shards moved apart. The cracked gray shard floated between them. A map of the capital appeared. The 3 routes into the Heart Gate were all blocked. The cathedral path passed through Lucian's command. The palace path passed through Gorthak's guard. The 3rd road appeared beneath the city aqueducts. Then it vanished. Elena touched the map, collapsed. Rook looked at the city walls. We could force a passage through one army. At the cost of starting the battle they want, Kale said. The Severed One's influence had already gathered thousands of armed people around the weakening seal. One spark would be enough. Kale looked at the 2 small forces waiting outside the chapel. Humans, demons, refugees, priests, scouts. People who had already rejected commands from both sides. We don't enter secretly. Elena studied him. What are you proposing? We walk through the western field. There is no western field. Rook said, it is open ground between both armies? Exactly. At dawn, the western gate opened. Not from within. The gray key turned in Kale's hand, and the ancient covenant mechanisms beneath the city answered. The gate doors pulled apart for the first time in a century. Kale walked toward them alone. Elena caught up on his left. Rook took his right. Behind them came 200 people carrying no banners. The Dominion army noticed first. Silver horns sounded. Ashland drums answered. Tens of thousands turned toward the western field. Kale did not slow. Lucian rode from the southern lines in polished white armor. Gorthak emerged from the north on a massive black beast covered in volcanic plates. The warlord was taller than any demon Kale had seen. 4 horns swept back from his skull, and red cracks glowed through his armor. Both leaders stopped within sight of the gate. Lucian looked at Elena. You bring armed demons to the holy capital. Gorthak looked at Rook. You bring church servants into the heart of our vengeance. Kale stood between them. You attacked the seal together. Neither denied it. Lucian addressed the gathered armies. The creature carries false memories designed to weaken human resolve. Gorthak raised his axe. The half-blood seeks to return demons to servitude beneath human saints. The whispers spread. Kale felt the Severed One strengthen each accusation as it entered the listeners. He removed the pendant. My mother was Seraphina. Holy soldiers lowered their heads at the name. My father was Valor. Demon warriors struck weapons against shields. They were not enemies when they disappeared. Lucian drew his sword. They were not enemies when they disappeared. Lucian drew his sword. Corrupted. Gorthak lifted his axe. They betrayed their blood. Kale looked from one army to the other. That is the same accusation. Silence traveled across the field. Lucian's expression hardened. Gorthak's red eyes narrowed. Kale continued. You use different words, but you demand the same thing. You tell your people that loyalty requires hatred. You call fear purity. You call obedience strength. The black column pulsed. Pain moved through Kale's chest. Something beneath the capital had noticed him. A voice entered his thoughts, not loud. His own. They will never listen. Kale recognized the certainty. The Severed One did not speak as a stranger. It used the shape of his grief. Lucian killed Rowan. Gorthak's servants hunted Rook. Their armies will destroy everything you protect. Choose. Kale found the silent point. Not alone. Elena's presence anchored the golden side. Rook's presence steadied the dark. The voice weakened. Kale lifted the gray shard. The archive memory spread above the western field. This time, it covered the sky. The United Cities. The original source. The first separation. The executions. The falsified histories. The Severed One feeding beneath every battlefield. The images crossed both armies at once. Soldiers saw ancestors from their own bloodline standing beside those they had been taught to hate. Priests saw the first sunburst guarding covenant halls. Demon warriors saw the red claw protecting human settlements. The final memory showed Lucian and Gorthak striking the primary seal. The field erupted. Some shouted that the images were lies. Others demanded answers. More simply, stared. Lucian raised his sword toward the projection. Behold the corruption of memory itself. Gorthak struck his axe against the ground. The boy would erase the wrongs done to our people. Kale lowered the shard. No. The projection changed. Human villages burned under demon raids. Demon children died beneath church purges. Mixed settlements disappeared between both armies. I will erase nothing. He faced the field. Peace built by pretending no one suffered is another lie. The armies quieted by degrees. But suffering does not prove your leaders are right. The black column shook. Cracks spread across the western gate. The severed one pressed harder. Every soldier felt old wounds sharpen. Memories of dead families, destroyed homes, humiliation, loss. The field began to divide again. Lucian saw his chance. He pointed his sword at Gorthak. The seal weakens because demon power surrounds the capital. Gorthak raised his axe toward the cathedral. The church chained the world beneath its own city. Holy weapons ignited. Demonic power rose. Kale stepped forward. "Look at them." His voice carried through the gray shard. "Not at me." He pointed toward Lucian and Gorthak. "They are both telling you that the only answer is to attack first." The Dominion commander, who had left the checkpoint, walked from Kale's followers. He removed his helmet. "My orders were to imprison children marked by frontier energy." A murmur moved through the Southern Army. The former demon captain stepped beside him. "My orders were to strike the checkpoint after the prisoners were taken." The northern line shifted. Elena raised the golden key. The archive proves both commands came after Lucian and Gorthak exchanged seal fragments. Rook lifted the black key. They planned the clash. Lucian's calm finally broke. Arrest them? No one moved immediately. That hesitation changed everything. Gorthak roared. "Kill the traitors." His personal guard advanced. Lucian's inquisitors did the same. Not the armies, only those closest to power. Kale's followers formed a line. 200 people against several hundred elites. Then a group of Dominion soldiers stepped away from the southern formation. A line of Ashland scouts left the north. Priests lowered their staffs. Demon healers raised shields. The space between Kale and his enemies filled with people who had chosen without being commanded. Lucian's eyes fixed on Kale. "You think this is victory? No." Kale looked at the trembling capital. "It is enough to begin." The second chain broke. The earth split. The western field collapsed along a line running from the cathedral to the old palace. Black energy erupted from the chasm. It did not distinguish between armies. Soldiers on both sides were thrown into the air. Kale expanded a gray barrier. Elena and Rook joined him. The shield covered the western gate and the people nearest it, but the chasm continued widening toward the camps. Lucian turned his holy power toward the southern army, not to protect them, to draw from them. Golden light tore from thousands of consecrated weapons and gathered around his body. Gorthak did the same. Darkness flowed from his warriors into the cracks of his armor. Both leaders grew stronger as their armies weakened. The severed one had prepared vessels. Lucian rose above the field within wings of white flame. Gorthak's body expanded beneath black fire, his horns forming a burning crown. They attacked Kale together. Elena raised the golden key. Rook raised the black. Kale formed the rotating circle. The first impact broke the western gate behind them. The second drove Kale to one knee. Lucian's holy force carried absolute command. Gorthak's darkness carried endless hunger. Both tried to seize the matching half inside Kale. His light wanted to answer Lucian. His darkness wanted to answer Gorthak. The silent point narrowed. Elena pressed her hand against Kale's left shoulder. "Your light is not his." Rook placed his hand on the right. "Your darkness is not his." Kale stood. The circle changed. Until now he had balanced power by giving both sides equal movement. Now he gave them identity. His holy power was the warmth that had healed animals in the forest, the barrier he had placed around villagers, the hand he had offered a frightened child. His darkness was the refusal to kneel, the strength that had broken chains, the instinct that protected freedom rather than consuming it. Light without Lucian's judgment. Darkness without Gorthak's hunger. The rotating circle became clear, not gray. Gold and black moving together without losing themselves. Lucian's attack struck. Kale turned its command aside. Gorthak's power followed. Kale stripped away its hunger. The remaining force passed through the circle and dispersed across the field as wind. The capital bells shattered. Lucien stared at the broken light around his hands. Gorthak's black flames collapsed inward. Kale felt the heart gate open beneath the western palace. The three keys rose. A path of gold, black, and silver appeared across the ruined field. It led into the chasm. "The final chain is failing," Elena said. Rook looked at Lucian and Gorthak. "They will follow." Kale stepped onto the path. "Then we end this below." The western palace split as they approached. Ancient stairs descended beneath its foundation. Kale, Elena, and Rook entered first. Behind them came soldiers from both armies. Not all. Enough. Lucian landed at the stair entrance. Gorthak followed from the opposite side. For one moment, the two leaders faced each other. The severed one whispered to both. They entered together. The heart gate lay beneath the deepest chamber of the capital. It was larger than the sanctuary and older than the archive. 3 rings surrounded a black abyss. One ring carried holy script. One carried demonic symbols. The third held the divided circle. The first two rings had broken. The third remained, split by a widening crack. At its center stood Seraphina and Valor. They were not memories. Seraphina's silver hair had turned almost entirely white. Her armor hung broken around her body, and golden chains passed through both arms into the seal. Valor remained upright only because black bindings held him against a stone pillar. One horn had broken. Darkness leaked continuously from the wound across his chest. They looked older than the figures in the pendant, weaker, alive. Cale stopped at the edge of the chamber. His mother saw him first. The chain in her hand trembled. Cale. His name crossed 18 years of absence in one breath. Valor lifted his head. Crimson eyes met Cale's. The Demon King smiled, not like a ruler, like a father who had been waiting too long. You grew. Cale could not answer. Every question he had carried disappeared beneath the simple fact that they were real. Seraphina reached toward him. The golden chain prevented her hand from moving more than an inch. Cale crossed the chamber. Elena caught his arm before he stepped across the final ring. The seal. Darkness moved beneath it. A vast presence pressed upward. Cale stopped inches from his mother's hand. Seraphina closed her fingers around empty air. I'm sorry. Cale looked at the chains passing through her arms. No. His voice failed once, then steadied. You stayed, Valor laughed softly. We had nowhere else to go. The attempt at humor broke what control remained. Cale touched the ring between them. Gold and black power moved through it. The seal showed him everything. 18 years of strain. His mother healing the chain whenever it broke. His father feeding his own life into the darkness to prevent it from spreading. Both of them watching memory fragments travel toward a child they could not see. Cale pressed his forehead against the barrier. Rarawan raised me. Seraphina's eyes closed. Then, he kept his promise. He died protecting me. Valor lowered his head. The grief on his face held no performance. Only an old debt becoming final. He was a better man than either kingdom deserved. Footsteps entered the chamber behind them. Lucian descended beneath white fire. Gorthak followed beneath black flame. The soldiers who had entered stopped along the upper rings. Lucian saw Seraphina. For one instant, something human moved through his expression. Then certainty returned. You could have ended this 18 years ago. Seraphina looked at him. We tried. You chose the demon. I chose the truth. Gorthak faced Valor. You abandoned the Ashlands for a saint. Valor's broken horn cast a long shadow across his face. I abandoned rulers who needed children to inherit hatred. The abyss stirred. The Severed One's voice entered the chamber. This time, everyone heard it, not as sound, as the thought they trusted most. To Lucian, it said humanity would perish unless he controlled everything. To Gorthak, it said demons would remain victims unless he conquered first. To the soldiers, it spoke in the voices of dead relatives. To Elena, it whispered that faith itself had been a lie. To Ruck, that every clan bond had been corruption. To Cale, it said his parents would die unless he took their place. The final thought entered gently. You can carry it. You were born for this. Cale stepped toward the ring. Seraphina's face changed. No. Valor pulled against his bindings. That is what it wants. Cale felt the truth. The Severed One did not care whether he embraced holy power, demonic power, whether he embraced holy power, demonic power, or balance. It wanted him alone. A single vessel carrying every burden. An isolated center strong enough to contain the world, and weak enough to be controlled by fear of losing it. Cale looked toward Elena and Ruck. Balance does not mean carrying everything alone. Lucian attacked the seal. Gorthak struck at the same moment. The final ring cracked. Seraphina and Valor cried out as the chains tore through them. Cale released the 3 keys. Elena caught the golden shard. Rook caught the black. Cale held the gray. They stepped onto 3 points around the ring. Lucian's white fire struck Elena. She raised the golden key. Instead of matching his force, she opened it. Holy power flowed through her and into the seal, stripped of command. Gorthak's darkness crashed toward Rook. He met it with the black key. The hunger passed into him. He gave it purpose, protect the covenant. The darkness changed direction. Cale connected both currents with the gray shard. The eternal balance formed across all 3 of them. Not a single point, a triangle. Gold moved through Elena. Darkness moved through Rook. Cale guided the exchange without owning either source. The final ring stabilized. The Severed One recoiled. Lucian descended into the chamber. You would divide power among traitors? Kale faced him. No. The circle expanded around Alina and Ruck. I would return choice to everyone. Lucien attacked. White wings crossed the chamber. Kale met him with light shaped by his own intention. The two holy powers collided. Lucien's technique carried authority gathered from thousands. Kale's carried no command, only protection. Lucien's blade cut through the first barrier. Kale yielded instead of resisting. He guided the strike around the ring. The force passed into Rook's darkness. Rook redirected it into the ground. Gorthak charged from the other side. Valor pulled one arm free of the chain. Black power gathered around his hand. Down. Kale obeyed. Valor's strike passed over him and hit Gorthak's axe. The old demonkin's weakened force should not have held. It did because he understood the attack. Gorthak fought with hunger. Valor fought with restraint. He turned the axe into the floor and broke Gorthak's stance. Seraphina freed one hand. Golden light reached Elena. Do not let faith become obedience. Elena raised the key. Her power changed. It no longer resembled the church's polished white flame. It became warmer, closer to dawn through a village window. She struck Lucien's wings. The false authority within them shattered. Rook moved beside Valor. Gorthak swung. Both demons crossed blades. The red claw mark on Rook's sword ignited. Valor saw it. The guardian line. Rook blocked a second strike. What remains of it? Then make it worthy again. Rook released darkness along the floor. Not toward Gorthak. Around him. The force trapped the warlord's feet without feeding his power. Kale reached Lucien. The High Inquisitor formed a sword of condensed light. You could have ruled both kingdoms. I don't want them. You could impose peace. That would still be fear. Lucien struck. Kale met the blade with one hand of gold and one of black. The weapon stopped between them. Lucien pushed harder. You believe, people will choose truth. Some will. Not enough. Enough to begin. Kale rotated both powers. The holy sword lost its command. The darkness within Lucien's certainty became visible. Thin black strands ran from his chest into the abyss. Lucien saw them. For the first time, doubt entered his eyes. The severed one tightened its hold. Lucien screamed and released a wave of white fire. Kale could have thrown it back. Instead, he opened the balance. The light passed through Elena. She purified its intention. The darkness passed through Ruck. He broke its compulsion. What returned to Lucien was his own power without the severed one's certainty. He fell to one knee. The white wings vanished. He looked at his empty hands. What have I done? Across the chamber, Gorthak roared. He rejected the same moment of clarity. Black fire consumed his armor. If hatred gave me strength, then hatred is truth. The severed one flooded him. His body expanded. 4 horns became a burning crown. The warlord tore free of Rook's bindings and charged toward the final ring. Valor moved first. He wrapped both broken chains around Gorthak's arms. The impact dragged him from the pillar. Seraphina seized the opposite chain. Together, Kale's parents pulled the warlord away from the seal. The strain tore the remaining anchors from their bodies. The final ring destabilized. Kale reached for it. Seraphina shouted, "Not alone!" Elena and Ruck joined him. The 3 keys locked into the divided circle. The heart gate opened, not downward, inward. The chamber disappeared. Kale stood within a space without earth or sky. The severed one surrounded them. It had no face because it wore every face hatred had ever used. A grieving soldier, a frightened child, a saint raising a sword, a demon kneeling among ruins. Each image appeared and vanished within its darkness. Lucien stood behind them, stripped of white flame. Gorthak struggled within Seraphina and Valor's chains. The soldiers who had entered the chamber appeared along the edge of the space. The entity spoke through all of them. You cannot destroy division. Kale held the gray key. No, you cannot end fear. No, you cannot make them forgive. No. The darkness pressed closer. Then what can you do? Kale looked at Elena. She carried faith without surrendering judgment. He looked at Rook. He carried darkness without turning pain into hunger. He looked at his parents. They had loved each other without pretending their worlds had caused no harm. Kale raised the gray shard. We can stop feeding you. The severed one attacked. Every memory of loss struck at once. Rowan falling beneath Lucien's sword. Seraphina and Valor chained for 18 years. Children in cages. Burned villages. The temptation was not to hate. It was to make hatred useful. To believe cruelty would prevent the next loss. Kale allowed the grief to remain. He did not turn it into permission. Elena did the same. Rook lowered his sword. Serafina released one chain. Vaylor released the other. Lucian looked at the black strands connected to his chest. He seized them with both hands. The severed one pulled. Lucian held on. "I chose this," he said. His voice shook. "Then choose again," Elena answered. Lucian tore the strands free. White light burst from his chest. Gorthak saw him fall. The warlord's certainty wavered. Rook stepped forward. "You can still release it." Gorthak looked at the armies reflected in the darkness. At demons kneeling beneath ruined cities. At graves from wars he had survived. "If I release hatred, what remains?" Vaylor met his gaze. "What you choose to build after it." Gorthak's grip loosened. The severed one drove black power through him. The warlord roared and raised his axe toward Rook. Vaylor intercepted the blow. The blade entered his chest. Kale shouted. Vaylor closed both hands around the axe. He looked at Gorthak from inches away. "This is what it makes of strength." Gorthak stared at the weapon buried in his former king. The darkness around his body flickered. Vaylor pulled him closer. "Choose." Gorthak released the axe. The black crown shattered. The severed one screamed, not in anger. In hunger. Its connections to the chamber broke one after another. Soldiers lowered weapons. Priests released commands. Demons opened clenched hands. The entity collapsed toward the heart gate. Kale felt the final seal forming around it. The cost became clear. The old anchors were destroyed. New ones were required. 3 keys. 3 living wills. Elena saw it too. "So this is the price." Rook placed his hand on the black key. "Will you remain?" Kale shook his head. "No, there is no other anchor," Elena said. "My parents held it for 18 years. And you think we should ask them to continue?" Rook replied. Kale looked at Serafina and Vaylor. Vaylor remained standing only because Serafina held him. The axe wound would not heal. His life was already fading. Serafina's light had nearly vanished. They had given enough. Kale placed the gray shard into the heart gate. Power shared willingly becomes stronger without becoming heavier. Elena understood first. The armies, the seal did not require 3 prisoners. It required 3 living intentions maintained across the world. Kale turned toward the soldiers surrounding the dark space. "Give what you choose. Not obedience. Not sacrifice demanded by rulers. Choice." Elena offered a thread of golden power. Rook offered darkness. Kale connected them through balance. Lucian added weakened white light. Gorthak placed one hand against the black ring. A Dominion soldier followed. Then a demon healer. A priest. A scout. Hundreds of powers entered. Beyond the heart gate, the armies felt the invitation. Some rejected it. Many did not. Golden and black currents flowed from the capital fields into the seal. The burden spread. No single person carried enough to become a vessel. The heart gate closed around the severed one. Its final whisper entered every mind. "You will divide again." Kale did not deny it. "Then we will choose again." The gate sealed. The black column vanished. The dark space broke apart. The chamber returned. Morning light entered through cracks in the palace above. The chains around Serafina and Vaylor dissolved. For the first time in 18 years, nothing held them upright. Kale reached them before they fell. Serafina touched his face with both hands. Her fingers trembled. "You have his eyes." Vaylor sat against the broken ring. "And her stubbornness." Kale laughed once through the tightness in his throat. "You both left me messages and somehow forgot to explain anything simply." Serafina smiled. "We had limited space. You could have used fewer warnings." "You ignored most of them," Vaylor said. Kale knelt between them. Golden light gathered in his hands. Serafina covered them. "No, I can heal you. You can delay what has already been spent." Vaylor looked toward the closed heart gate. The seal took years, not wounds. Kale's power shook. He found the silent point. It did not remove grief. It only stopped grief from deciding for him. Elena and Rook stood nearby. Neither interrupted. Lucian remained on one knee at the edge of the chamber. Gorthak had lowered his head. The armies waited above without orders. Serafina leaned against Kale. "What was your home like?" The question struck harder than any farewell, Kale told her. "A cottage beneath the pines, Mrs. Mira demanding firewood. Chief Oren pretending not to notice when children stole apple. Bluebirds landing on his head. Rowan complaining about his knees while hiding an entire fortress beneath the floor." Vaylor laughed until the sound became a cough. "He hated stairs when he was young, too. You knew him then. He tried to arrest me." Serafina closed her eyes. "He failed. Repeatedly." Kale listened as they spoke of Rowan before the village. A crimson warden who questioned orders. A soldier who helped a saint and a demon escape. A man who had carried an infant through 3 armies and disappeared into the mountains. The story returned a piece of Rowan the church had tried to erase. When silence came, Seraphina looked toward the opening above. Sunlight reached the chamber floor. "Is that dawn?" "Yes." Vaylor held out one hand. Cale took it. His father's grip was weak. "Still warm. We wanted to see one more." The 3 sat together as the light crossed the broken heart gate. Seraphina rested her head against Cale's shoulder. Vaylor's hand remained around his. Neither gave a final command. Neither asked him to inherit a throne. They watched the first dawn of a world no longer held together by their suffering. Seraphina's breathing stopped first. Vaylor looked at her. The old demon king smiled with unbearable gentleness. Then he closed his eyes. Cale remained between them until the sunlight reached the opposite wall. The armies did not begin fighting again. For several hours, that was the closest thing the world had to peace. Dominion soldiers remained south of the capital. Ashland warriors remained north. Between them, healers crossed the broken western field without banners. Humans carried wounded demons from collapsed trenches. Demons lifted fallen marble from trapped priests. No treaty commanded them. The Heartgate had taken power from every person who chose to support the seal. For one brief moment, thousands had felt the intentions of those standing on the other side. Fear, grief, the need to protect families, the hope of returning home. None of it had erased the crimes of either kingdom. It had only made the oldest lie impossible to maintain. Cale left the chamber after midday. He carried Seraphina in his arms. Rook carried Vaylor. Elena walked ahead of them through the ruined palace, clearing fallen stone with what remained of her light. The soldiers gathered outside the western gate parted in silence. Many human soldiers knelt when they saw the Saintess. The motion spread through the southern field until thousands lowered their heads. Across the north, Ashland warriors struck fists against their chests for the demon king they had been taught to call a traitor. Cale stopped between the 2 armies. His mother's white hair moved beneath the open sky. His father's broken armor no longer carried black fire. For 18 years, both kingdoms had claimed ownership over their deaths. Now neither side knew what to do with the truth of their lives. Lucian emerged from the palace behind them. He had removed the white cape of the High Inquisitor. His armor remained cracked across the chest where the severed one's influence had been torn away. Gorthak followed without his burning crown. The warlord's 4 horns were still intact, but he appeared smaller without borrowed darkness surrounding him. Neither approached the bodies. Cale looked across the armies. "My mother was not murdered by the Demon King." The gray shard carried his voice beyond the capital walls. "My father did not corrupt the Saintess." No one interrupted. They discovered that the first war was built upon altered history. When they tried to reveal it, leaders from both kingdoms attacked the Covenant's seal. The archive memory appeared above the field. Seraphina and Vaylor entered the Heartgate 18 years earlier. They took the chains. They remained beneath the capital while Lucian, Gorthak, and their predecessors preserved a war that strengthened the severed one. The memory did not soften anything. It showed church purges, demon raids, mixed settlements destroyed by both sides. It showed Lucian striking the primary seal. It showed Gorthak doing the same. When the images ended, the silence had changed. It no longer held uncertainty. It held judgment. A Dominion general stepped forward. His sword remained sheathed. "High Inquisitor Lucien." Lucien met his gaze. "Did you order the attacks upon the seal?" "Yes." Murmurs moved through the southern army. The general's voice hardened. "Did you know the Saintess remained alive beneath the capital?" "Yes." Several priests recoiled. One removed the silver sunburst from his chest. Others followed. Lucien did not defend himself. That refusal angered some more than denial would have. "You allowed the Dominion to worship her death," the general said. "I believed unity required a martyr. You imprisoned her beneath our cathedral. I preserved the state she died to protect." Cale looked at him. "She did not die to protect your state." Lucien lowered his eyes towards Seraphina. "No." The admission crossed the field through the gray shard. Lucien removed his sword. Dominion soldiers tightened their formation. He placed the weapon on the ground. Then he unfastened the silver sunburst from his armor and set it beside the blade. "I surrender my authority." The general stepped closer. "You do not possess the right to decide your punishment." "I know." Lucien knelt. The Dominion army watched its most powerful inquisitor submit without command, spell, or force. No holy pressure compelled him. The choice was his. Across the field, an Ashland commander approached Gorthak. "You ordered our healers' supplies seized." Gorthak stared toward Vaylor's body. "Yes. You sent mixed blood settlements into the path of Dominion patrols. Yes, you knew the old king guarded the seal. Gorthak's jaw tightened. I knew he lived. The Northern Army erupted. Some demanded his execution. Others raised weapons to defend him. Rook lowered Valor carefully beside Seraphina and stepped between the factions. If you begin killing one another now, nothing has changed. An older demon pointed at Gorthak. He betrayed the Ashlands, and when he is dead, Rook asked, who inherits his war? The commander looked around the northern field. No answer came. Gorthak unfastened the red crown from his armor. He held it for several breaths. Then he broke it across his knee. I claimed hatred was strength, he said. It gave me an army. It also made me easy to control. He looked at the warriors who had followed him. I will answer for every order given beneath this crown. He dropped the broken pieces. Unlike Lucian, Gorthak did not kneel. He surrendered his weapon and stood waiting. The distinction mattered. They had chosen accountability. They had not become the same man. Kale looked toward the bodies of his parents. This is not enough. The field quieted. 2 leaders surrendering will not undo generations of war. 1 memory will not make enemies trust each other. A shared battle will not return the dead. He allowed the archive projections to spread again. This time, he showed names. The casualty registry from the witness archive filled the sky. Human names, demon names, mixed families, frontier communities. Records erased from both kingdoms. The truth must not belong to another ruler, Elena understood. She raised the golden key. The church archives will be opened. A bishop near the southern formation stepped forward. You no longer speak for the church. No, Elena said. That is the point. She looked toward the priests. Every sealed record concerning the first covenant, the separation, the frontier purges, and Seraphina must be copied and distributed. One priest hesitated. Some records contain sacred secrets. Secrets used to justify cages are not sacred. A younger priest removed his sunburst. I will help. Others joined him. Not all. Enough. Enough. Rook raised the black key. The Ashland clan vaults must open as well. The northern commander frowned. Clan histories belong to bloodlines. They were altered to control those bloodlines. He would expose every defeat and betrayal. Yes, Rooksy, Rooks. Looked at the red claw mark on his sword. If the old symbols are worth carrying, they can survive the truth. Gorthak faced the commanders who had served him. Open the war vaults. One refused immediately. Another accused him of surrendering demon sovereignty. A third lowered his head in agreement. The Ashlands did not become united around truth. They divided over whether truth should be permitted. Kale accepted that. Peace forced through obedience would recreate the same system with kinder language. The choice had to remain difficult. By evening, temporary councils formed on the western field. Dominion commanders met without Lucian's authority. Ashland representatives argued without Gorthak's crown. Frontier refugees demanded seats at both gatherings. Mixed blood communities refused to be represented by either kingdom and formed a delegation of their own. Arguments began before the tables were fully assembled. Territory, prisoners, supply routes, compensation, religious law, clan rights. No one agreed on what the new world should become, yet the armies did not resume fighting. That was enough for the first day. Kale carried his parents into the grand cathedral before sunset. The enormous hall had been built around Seraphina's false tomb. White marble depicted her final battle against Valor across every wall. Priests watched as Kale approached the altar. At its center, a silver statue showed the Saintess driving a sword through the demon king's heart. Kale placed Seraphina and Valor before it. The lie towered above their bodies. Elena stood beside him. Should we destroy it? Kale looked at the statue. The darkness inside him wanted to break it. The light wanted to replace it with something pure. Both answers felt incomplete. No, Elena waited. Leave it, he said, but place the truth beside it. The false monument would remain, not as a sacred image, as evidence of how easily stone could be made to lie. A new inscription was carved into the altar that night. Seraphina of the first light Valor of the Ashland's enemies by command allies, by truth bound by choice. They held the heart gate for 18 years. No throne may claim their sacrifice. They were buried together beneath the cathedral garden. Dominion priests objected to placing a demon within holy ground. Ashland elders objected to burying their king beneath a human temple. Kale listened to both arguments. Then he chose the garden because his mother had once planted silver lilies there, and his father's oldest surviving letter said he hated ceremonial tombs. The grave belonged to neither kingdom. Rowan's iron seal was placed between their names. His body remained in the mountain village, but his name joined theirs. Rowan, the crimson warden. He protected the child when the world would not. Kale stood before the grave, after everyone else had left. Evening rain darkened the soil. He had imagined meeting his parents since the pendant revealed their faces. He had expected anger, questions, perhaps relief. He had not imagined learning the sound of their laughter only hours before losing it. Golden light gathered faintly in his left hand. Darkness moved through his right. Neither could change what had happened. For once, they did not try. Elena approached through the rain. She carried no umbrella. The council is asking for you. They have enough people arguing already. They want someone to decide who controls the heart gate. No one should. That answer will create another argument. Good. Elena stood beside him. The Dominion delegation wants you recognized as Seraphina's heir. The Ashland representatives want me to claim Valor's throne. Gorthak's remaining loyalists want to challenge you for it. Kale looked at her. You appear to be enjoying this, only slightly. She touched the wrapped sunburst beneath her armor. The surviving bishops also want to know whether I intend to dissolve the Inquisition. Do you? I intend to dissolve the part that burns villages. That seems reasonable. The rest will require discussion. Rain gathered along the carved names. Kale looked toward the cathedral windows, where human priests and demon healers worked together to treat the injured. What will you call it? Elena followed his gaze. I don't know yet. Then don't decide tonight. She nodded. They remained beside the grave without speaking. Rook arrived several minutes later, carrying 3 cups and a clay bottle. Elena inspected the liquid. What is that? Ashland morning wine. It smells flammable. It serves 2 purposes. Rook handed 1 cup to Kale. I thought demons celebrated fallen kings by burning weapons. We do. You still have your sword, Rook. Rook looked at the red claw mark. This one has work left. They poured 1 cup over the grave. The second was divided between Kale and Rook. Elena refused, until Rook accused the Dominion of lacking courage. She drank 1 mouthful, coughed, and produced enough holy light to illuminate the entire garden. Kale laughed. The sound surprised him. Elena glared at Rook. You poisoned me. That was the weaker bottle. Kale laughed again. Grief remained. It did not vanish because something warm entered beside it. That was balance too. The first official negotiation began the next morning. It lasted 9 hours and accomplished almost nothing. The Dominion demanded withdrawal of all Ashland forces from the capital plain. The Ashlands demanded the release of every demon held by the Church. Frontier delegates demanded both armies withdraw from their lands. Mixed blood representatives demanded recognition, independent of holy or demonic classification. The priests demanded protection for worship. Clan elders demanded protection for ancestral law. Kale listened until an argument over the seating order nearly ended the meeting. He stood. The room quieted because every faction feared what power he might use. Kale used none. You are negotiating as if peace is a reward someone wins. No one answered. The Dominion wants safety before releasing prisoners. The Ashlands want prisoners released before withdrawing. The Frontier wants armies gone before opening roads. Everyone is waiting for someone else to take the first risk. A Dominion minister folded his hands. That is how guarantees work. No. That is how nothing changes. Kale placed 3 documents on the table. The Church releases the first group of non-violent Frontier detainees today. The minister frowned. Without demon withdrawal. An Ashland unit withdraws from the northern farms. At the same time, the clan representative turned toward Rook. Who authorized this? I did, Rook said. You hold no crown. Correct. Then you cannot command withdrawal. I asked for volunteers. An Ashland captain stepped forward. Agreed. Kale placed the final document before the Frontier delegation. In return, the Western Trade Road opens for medicine and food under mixed escorts. The Frontier representative read the terms. Human and demon guards together? Yes. Neither side will trust them. They do not need trust on the first day. They need witnesses. The minister looked at Kale. And if one side betrays the agreement, then everyone sees who broke it. Small agreements followed. Prisoner exchanges began with names verified by both archives. Shared healers entered damaged settlements. Trade roads reopened under joint supervision. Border shrines stopped testing travelers for demonic residue. Ashland gates stopped refusing humans after sunset. None of the changes happened without resistance. A Dominion village attacked the first mixed supply convoy. An Ashland clan imprisoned its own healers for treating human soldiers. Copies of the archive records were burned in 3 cities. A priest declaring the Covenant heresy gathered thousands of followers. A demon commander claimed Gorthak had been bewitched and attempted to restore the old crown. Peace did not arrive as a single victory. It appeared as a series of moments in which enough people refused to return to what they already knew. Kale traveled constantly during the first year. He did not accept either throne. The Dominion called him Saint Hare until he refused the title publicly. The Ashlands called him Blood Prince until he refused that too. The Frontier began calling him the Bridge. Cale disliked that name least, so it survived. Elena rebuilt the old Inquisition into an order with no authority to imprison, execute, or conceal records without an independent council. Its new duty was to investigate misuse of holy power. Half the remaining bishops called the reform blasphemy. Elena invited them to read the newly opened archives. Most declined. She published the records anyway. Rook returned to the Ashlands carrying the Black Key and Vaylor's final words. He did not become warlord. He restored the Red Claw as the symbol of guardians who protected roads, healers, and covenant sites. Those who joined swore no loyalty to a throne. Their oath was simple. No child would inherit an enemy by command. Gorthak stood trial before representatives from the clans and the settlements harmed by his orders. Lucian stood trial before soldiers, priests, and families of those taken by the Inquisition. Neither trial ended quickly. Both men confessed to actions others wanted hidden. Neither asked forgiveness. The punishments were different. Lucian was stripped of rank and sentenced to rebuild frontier settlements under guard, using the same hands that had once ordered them burned. Gorthak was forbidden from commanding warriors and sent to recover the dead from battlefields his campaigns had created. Some called the judgments too merciful. Others called them humiliating. Cale considered them useful. Death would have ended their responsibility. Living forced them to face it. The Heartgate changed as the world changed. It no longer relied upon 3 fixed anchors. Every covenant sanctuary, reopened archive, mixed settlement, and shared oath added a thread to the seal. The severed one remained beneath the world. Cale never claimed it had been destroyed. Fear still existed. Hatred still found reasons. Certainty still tempted people to treat cruelty as necessity, but the entity no longer drank from a hidden war. People knew its methods. Knowledge did not make them immune. It made resistance possible. 2 years after the battle beneath the capital, Cale returned to the mountain village. Snow covered the road where Lucian's riders had once surrounded the settlement. The homes had been rebuilt, not exactly as before. The new roofs were wider. The well had moved closer to the square. The damaged bell tower remained leaning because Mrs. Mira insisted it possessed character. Cale reached Rowan's cottage before sunset. Bluebirds occupied the fence. One landed on his head. Rook stopped beside him. "You allowed that?" "I have never successfully prevented it." Elena arrived behind them carrying too many books for a journey into the mountains. The village archive is missing records from the last 18 years. Mrs. Mira appeared in the doorway. "You can read after dinner." Elena began to object. The elderly woman took the books from her hands and passed them to a child. No holy authority resisted. Rook examined the cottage. "This is where the Demon King's son was hidden." Cale opened the door. "This is where Rowan complained about firewood." The cottage smelled of cedar and bread. The hidden tunnel beneath the rear wall had been sealed. The old wooden table had been repaired. On the shelf rested a new box containing copies of Seraphina's memories, Vaylor's letters, Rowan's service record, and the village testimony concerning the Inquisition's attack. The truth no longer depended upon one pendant. It existed in hundreds of archives across the continent. Children gathered after dinner. They had heard different versions of Cale's story. Some believed he defeated both armies alone. One claimed he transformed into a dragon beneath the capital. Another insisted Elena had punched Lucian through a cathedral wall. Ruck supported that version. Elena threatened to assign him archive work. Cale sat near the fireplace while Mrs. Mira distributed bread. A small girl with black markings around one wrist sat among the village children. He recognized her from the checkpoint. She had grown taller. "You came here," he said. "My parents moved after the border laws changed." She showed him the markings without hiding them. They didn't go away. Cale held out his left hand. Golden light appeared. Then his right. Black power followed. The children leaned closer. Neither energy dominated. They revolved in a steady circle between his palms. The girl watched. "Does it hurt?" "Sometimes." "Are you a saint or a demon?" Cale looked around the cottage. At Elena sorting records despite Mrs. Mira's orders. At Rook teaching children an Ashland dice game and losing suspiciously often. At the bluebird sleeping on the windowsill. At Rowan's empty chair beside the fire. Neither. The girl frowned. "Then what are you?" Cale brought his hands together. The light and darkness moved without becoming gray, each remaining visible within the same circle. "Myself." Outside, the village bell rang. Once for the evening meal. Once for travelers still on the road. Once for those who would not return. The sound crossed the mountain and traveled toward the frontier, where human and demon settlements now stood along reopened roads. Farther east, the holy capital no longer displayed the statue of Seraphina killing Vaylor as sacred truth. It remained in the cathedral, surrounded by the records that exposed it. Farther north, the Ashland halls no longer taught that mercy weakened demon blood. Children learned that their oldest guardians had protected human cities beside their own. The world had not become one kingdom. It had become many communities learning how to meet without first reaching for weapons. There were still border clashes, still lies, still people who preferred the certainty of enemies. But every year, fewer children were taught hatred before they learned another person's name. At dawn, Cale climbed the hill above the village. The first sunlight spread across the snow. Elena joined him with 3 letters from the capital. Rook arrived carrying breakfast he had stolen from Mrs. Mira's kitchen. "She knows," Cale said. "She cannot prove it." A wooden spoon struck Ruck from somewhere below. Elena opened the first letter. "The Eastern Council has approved the new mixed academy." Cale took the bread. "Good. The Ashland delegation refuses the proposed uniform." "Also good. The Dominion wants white." "Of course." "The clans want black." "Of course." Rook rubbed the back of his head. "Use both." Elena looked at him. "That is surprisingly practical. I regret speaking." She opened the second letter. The Heart Gate reports stable balance across all Covenant anchors. Cale looked blurry toward the sunrise. He could feel the seal at the edge of awareness. Thousands of distant threads. Holy light offered by priests who understood it as service rather than authority. Demonic power offered by clans that understood strength as protection rather than conquest. Ordinary people maintaining Covenant stones in villages, roads, schools, and healing halls. The burden remained shared. "What is the third letter?" Cale asked. Elena broke the seal. Her expression changed. Ruck stopped eating. "What?" She handed the page to Cale. It came from the Witness Archive. A new chamber had opened beneath the ruins. Inside, archivists had discovered records concerning lands beyond the continent. Places where other forms of power had been divided and named enemies. Rook looked toward the distant horizon. "So the first war was not the only one?" "No," Elena said. Cale folded the letter. Once the thought of another hidden conflict would have felt like a burden placed upon him. Now it felt like a road. He was not required to carry it alone. Below them, the village awakened. Smoke rose from chimneys. Children crossed the square. Humans, demons, and mixed families, prepared for an ordinary day beneath the same morning sky. Cale touched the pendant around his neck. The gemstone no longer contained any sealed memories. It remained because it had belonged to his parents. Golden light warmed one side. Darkness cooled the other. Between them was no empty point. There was movement, choice, connection. The first dawn had not ended the world's darkness. It had only revealed that darkness and light had never been enemies until someone taught them to be. Cale turned toward the village. For the first time, no army waited on the road. No prophecy demanded his next step. No throne claimed his blood. He walked home with his friends beneath the rising sun.